committee meeting order on Wednesday, January 31st. I'm Sarah Melish, chair. I have with me Maury Creighton, Andy Olderman, Mike Pratt, Tom Harkins. Oh, God, Peter Twine, Dean Hodges, and also present are Greg Fetterspiel and Ed Harrison and Chuck Dan and Nate DeRose. So we're spending most of the time tonight on the DPW. The opportunity to ask them questions. So the first item I had was just an update on the projects that you're working on.
Sure. Thanks for having us in. I guess where do you start on our projects?
Take the whole meeting.
I guess the one that we just wrapped up this week was Walker Road. That was the water main improvements. That was a winter job. Went well. We actually found more pipe that needed to be replaced than we anticipated, but we got it all done. We will next move to what I hope will be the Pleasant Street job on the water main work. We are also currently working with CST engineers on, and we've received the MassWorks grant for water and sewer improvements on Forest Street and Mill Street to bring water and sewer to the LCD. So that is still in the engineering phase, but we do have construction dollars from the MassWorks grant. So far, CST is committed to any overruns, that go beyond the grant, they will fund. So we expect that to be in the ballpark of a $5 million job. Probably, hopefully we'll be under construction this summer, complete the pipe work by this fall, and get it online in terms of their schedule.
What would be our responsibility of the 5 million?
So far, nothing.
It's all in the grant.
Yep, it's all, so we have a $3.5 million grant, Frank, and we expect it to be at 5 million, so the 1.5 delta there would, be the responsibility of CST. One thing that is included in this year's budget, to kind of supplement that project is, it does include full width paving for the, where we do the pipe on Forest Street and Mill Street, or there's a section of Mill Street between school and where it crosses 128, which isn't really included in that project and therefore not included in the grant. So I would like to use town funds to pave all of Mill Street rather than leave a section unpaved. So that's kind of one of the reasons why we get into our budget on the capital side. That was kind of a bigger number than typical for paving and roadway work. So that's kind of picking up there. Also, obviously, now that we've finished the work on
Can
Walker.
you just step back a second on that grant?
Hmm?
So when would money from the grant start flowing?
We're under contract now, so as soon as we have so we have to,
invoice.
so we have to bid a, it's a technically a town project, the
Yeah.
grant is with the town, not with
Right.
CST. So we will bid it, normal, just like it was any other DPW project, town project. And as we incur expenses, they would be reimbursed through the grant.
Okay, so it can't be pulled.
I would think.
They signed the contract.
It's a signed contract for Mass.
Run amok of the MBTA zone.
Oh, no.
We're ahead of that.
Yeah, well,
Okay, good thing.
we are ahead.
This is probably a question for Greg, but you said 3.5 grant, 1.5 from CST.
You're right.
That 1.5, what is that? Like, is it a prepayment taxes? Is it?
No, they'll be paying the contract. We'll have a contract, an agreement with them, that they will pay the balance of the contractors' bills
Yeah.
beyond 3.5.
Yeah. Which is great, which is fantastic. I guess I'm getting nitty gritty accounting. I'm like, at the end of the day, the town owns the infrastructure, right?
Yes.
Clearly. So I'm just trying to figure out how that's categorized, like the 1.5 million.
As part of the
What
agreement.
kind of income?
It's just part of some general agreement.
There'll be a specific memorandum that we have with the company to pay the contractor X dollars, but once we have a contract, we'll know.
Okay.
what they are
Which is
responsible.
great, it's awesome, I'm just like.
Yep.
Would it be like a betterment, like,
No,
Yeah, that's what I was trying to, that's what I was trying to frame.
no, it's just simply, contract with them paying certain that portion.
but we have mechanism now in the codes where if someone wants a betterment, they can,
Yes,
there's a way to do it.
I think they asked us to apply for the water works
Yeah.
grant. If we hadn't, the whole project would have been on them.
That's
Yeah,
the part I didn't know.
okay, sorry to interrupt.
Yep, so, I started talking about paving, so, we pave Walker Road. Like to do the cleaning lining work on, Pleasant Street this summer. Obviously, we'll need to pave that when that work's done, similar to what we did on School Street. We are also, so that's generally it for water main work. We are still, and I have a whole presentation if we want to get into it about, PFAS alternatives and how we're working through that process. Essentially, we have kind of the preliminary engineering work done. Right now, we are under contract to do the piloting and bench scale testing at Lincoln Street as well as Gravelly Pond. To, basically understand better what media we're gonna be needing to use and how we're gonna set that up and run rates and all of those, different engineering parameters for that work.
Was that under the last year's budget? Or-
So we had leftover ARPA funds, so we're using the ARPA funds to do that work. That's, we have to get that work, right now, we're working to get that approved by DEP, so that'll kind of dictate how long that takes. That's in and of itself a process, let me tell you. So we are cautiously optimistic that when the regs are promulgated in, it's supposed to be the end of 23, hearing now March, which is basically a year from when they did the, kind of preliminary, where they floated out the regs, the new reg EDA. They did that last March in 23, so be about a year if it's March of 24 where they promulgate those regs and then they go into effect. I've, asked 100 different ways to 100 different people and nobody thinks that they're gonna change, compared to what they put out there last March, so I don't think that's
likely to be the same.
it's likely to be 4 parts per trillion PFAS and PFOA plus a factor for any other. So that's essentially what we've prepared for in our preliminary work for Lincoln Street. That'll be the first one that has to go. Because right now our current concentrations are somewhere between 10 and 20 parts per trillion. The rate would be 4, so it's obviously.
So I read through that study from what, May of 2022, I think?
Yep.
Can't remember the name of the firm. What's that?
CDRs.
Yeah, when ideally we break ground on that, like, that's a project for, like you said, not Gravelly, the other place.
Yep, so right now we're trying to get our piloting approved by DEP. That's a groundwater source, so theoretically will be quicker, although PFAS is kind of its own animal, so. If there were regular circumstances, I think it would be, 4 to 6 month pilot, but it might be longer than that, so, that's what we're looking for from, in the next month or so. That will be approved and then we'll go out there and do it, like, we're ready to go, we have the contract in place. We know what we'll need to do in terms of the, trailers that are, testing the water and sending it to lab and all that kind of stuff. So all the pre-planning stuff, we just need to kind of get the approval to do it. And then, then it'll be a design process where we take the information that we learned from that and we put it on paper and, do the public bidding and all those different things. We'll sure we'll have, town permitting that needs to be, Concom and all these things happen. That'll be the start of that process. Not sure about the 12-month process there.
Yeah, probably.
I mean, I remember from the attachment, it's envisioning kind of a building structure to house. Charcoal filter that, whatever.
Yeah.
So you're talking about the permitting and this and that, but just best guess when that structure would. Talking a year or year and a half?
Yeah, I would say reasonably, year to 18 months in that range.
Okay.
So this would start to really hit the tax bills and the budget next year or this year.
Yeah, so we need to do the engineering, so that's a real cost, you know, that's substantial, that's not, you know. $50,000 thing, that's.
Hold on just a moment. No, Gail, you have your hand up?
Yes, Chuck is coming over a little muddled on the sound because he's sitting behind the screen.
Yeah.
Could he move that up next to Greg? The podium next to Greg.
All right, you hear me now?
A little, move up closer. You'll get a little, that's better.
Follow on top of me, Gail? Yeah.
That's,
Microphone's on top of the TV.
Sure.
yeah, you were a bit behind it. Thank you.
All right.
Sorry.
So, yeah.
So you can get yourself situated. I guess the question is just sort of, what do we think the what do we think the expenditure is gonna be? It sounds like the engineering may be more than 50K, 500K, something like that, and then the whole project is gonna be X numbers of millions. We have a sense of that.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if the design fee in total, you know, with all of the different engineering tasks. From the industry. That'd be roughly 10%. 15%, you know, of the construction costs. Keep in mind simultaneously, we are looking at Gravel Pond. The numbers there aren't so bad, but there will be an expense and an engineering effort to bring that to zero as well. So, you know, I'd like to think that we, you know, the focus will be Lincoln Street, but we will be looking at Gravel Pond as well.
So you think that'll be about the same?
Can't quite give you that one yet. I think there's a path forward, you know, the worst case number that I put out there, which is what's reflected in our current memorandums, is around 16 million, which is more. That's essentially doing the same project from Lincoln Street up at Gravel Pond, which is separate building, filters, the whole thing. You know, there is potential that we can work within the existing building and we can retrofit the existing filters. But we are 6 to 12 months away from being able to say that for certain. And so, no, I can't go there. The worst case scenario I've laid out is there's a $60 million project and a $9 million project, and that's how we solve PFAS. Obviously, there are grants that will become available if we become out of compliance. So far, it's kind of been the kind of push and pull we've been under is we're under the current threshold, the current MCL. So there's no grant money for being almost at the MCL. You have to be over it. If the new reg, when the new reg goes into place, we will be over at Lincoln Street. So that opens up those all avenues, and you know we will pursue them all. But it remains to be seen when and how much.
The permitting for the two is stuck there.
So right now, the piloting event scaler that we have is we have everything combined. So we will know the answers, you know, when we get to the end of that project. Where we go with the design engineering for Gravel Pond could be the whole litany from, you know, $2 or $3, $4 million design fee to, you know, maybe $1 million or less. It really depends on what we're allowed to do.
And the DE permit, the DEP permit is obviously not any sort of a construction permit, but it's a permit to line and kind of go forward with a certain design.
Yeah, so DEP under, you know, they're in charge of the drinking water and they essentially get to approve and bless every treatment process and every, you know, way you could potentially solve the problem. And, you know, they like to see ways that are driving through and take a look at the work and like to have all the possible information and know all the answers to all the questions before they let you build. If they don't want to get to a situation where, you know, you build something and you're still out of compliance.
So the EPA is coming in with the regulations, but they're not involved in construction. That goes to the state level.
Yeah, so the
Okay.
DEP has privacy in
Okay,
drinking water in Massachusetts.
that's good.
So one renovation, we might, rather than stick the whole 23 million in the capital improvement plan under FY27, we might break a chunk of that off, put it down the road for
That's
gravel.
yeah.
But but it seems pretty likely in the next 4 to 5 to 6 years, the town will be signing up for something close to 25 million to do with PFAS in 2 locations.
Okay,
So, and we have choices about a bunch of things. It sounds like this is one of the things we don't have a whole lot of choices about. So it's kind of a pothole in the road that can't be moved, so to speak. We gotta work with it.
yeah, so I think the way we've set up the budget is, and the way we've set up kind of the, path forward is we need to do this base level, analysis. When I stand here a year from now, I will have all these answers and we will, have a much better, more definitive plan for, now 4 or 5 years after that. So that's my plan, but I don't want to kind of sugarcoat it now and do more about this next year. Hopefully better news.
Any other questions? Stuff on the PFAS? Okay,
Back to.
Yep, so I guess just to finish on the water, we have started and we are working on a piloting program for metering. So the meters that you all have in your houses for, what we bill you on. We've started that process. We've got some good data so far. It's modernizes our method of, doing things in today's day and age. There's, now apps available where you can, get alerts. So, if you have continuous use, or if you have a leak, or if you have just, somebody's using water in your house and you're in Florida, that kind of thing, like you'll be able to know. So that's kind of a selling point for the residents from a, DPW perspective. We're gonna have to replace them eventually. And this gives us kind of the ability to let people know what they're using, give them more information in today's day and age. That seems to be what everybody wants, is more information. As well as stop problems on a more frequent basis. So right now we bill on a quarterly basis. So once every 3 months, you get a bill and you say, oh, that bill's really high compared to last year's or not. But I haven't done anything different. My kids are in college, or not, whatever it is. So this is, and so when we turned on the pilot, we have about 20, residential meters out there right now. People found leaks immediately. We had 2 users, so roughly 10% had a continuous leak, and one of them was fairly substantial. And so when we get to the end of the quarter, we would have found that because their bill would have been much higher, and we would have abated it and lost that revenue, lost that water, to some degree. And then just the back and forth. Now it's you'll get an alert on your phone, but even if you don't sign up for that or opt into that, we will get the alert, in the office, and we will, send you an email, shoot you a, phone call, or any of these types of things. So that's how it's worked out so far. I think, it's kind of a win-win for everybody.
So the leak is on the consumer side of the meter.
Yeah.
It's not just into their basement. I mean, it's into the ground before it gets to the house. I
No,
don't.
typically it's a leaky toilet, so it's just going right down the drain.
Leak, okay, leak. I had a picture of water come running around.
you thought they would have noticed it, right?
Thought it wasn't noticed.
So that,
Here late at night, total.
Yeah, okay, got it.
yeah, and they can be, they can be large, where, one of them was, probably in the order of, would have been 70,000 gallons in a quarter. Fairly significant. Then there's another one that was, a couple gallons an hour. And
Yeah, got it.
So we have put that forward in this year's budget, as an item, all in, worst case scenario, if we do every bell and whistle and every meter in town. So $1.5 million job. That includes a new meter and the new endpoint, which, gives you the data from the meter to your phone or to the, computer. Again, there is a path forward. We'll have to put that's RFP. So we'll get proposals from all the different vendors, and, we might have a better way of doing it, a cheaper way of doing it for our particular setup. But it seems to be the most bells and whistles would be if, everybody has basically a cellular, endpoint on their meter. That's kind of starting point, or one way to do it for everybody. There are other ways to do it where, everything comes into play between battery length and just, frequency of reads and all, how good their app is versus, not all these things. So we will evaluate the proposals, we won't necessarily have to go with the low price, but we will have that ability as well, or we can, go for the all-in, all bells whistles. So we'll cross that bridge when we get to it, but that's essentially where we would, start, with that new project. And we can also phase that over, probably multiple years if we so chose.
So today. A water meter is inside the house,
Typically, it can also be in a pit outside the house.
little beige gizmo is outside the house.
Yep.
So how is that impacted by these new meters?
So we would. Theoretically, we would change the meter in the house if that's the way to go, but there will be a percentage that get changed no matter what, just because they're the old ones that we want to get rid of. And then on the MXU or the thing that's on the outside house, that's the endpoint that we're talking about, so that would be upgraded and potentially, give you all that information.
So that's the part that's really getting replaced, it's the external.
That would have to be replaced across the board 100%. The meter would be where we might get some savings if we go with certain manufacturers, they can retrofit onto existing meters or, a cheaper version of the same meter. Well, there's games that can go with it.
Now, is the advantage of doing this all at once, that you can have a contractor come in and do it versus like our own forces would do it as if we were to do it as meters break?
Yeah, so this type of project, I would strongly recommend that we have, one contractor be responsible for, all of the scope, retrofit. We're not set up to, do, roughly twice 400. That's something.
No, the idea would be if meters break, then you can replace them with a new one.
Yeah,
Not get rid of working meters now.
Gotcha.
It's like an electric.
And they'll actually replace the meters, not personal contract.
But so I'm saying we could do it that way, that would be also over a much longer period than 1 or 2 years. So I would recommend do just all at once or, some set time. So everybody's on the same system, because the problem we would have then would be maintaining both systems that we're on today and then the new system. And there'd be people actually paying for a system that they're not on. We're talking about this.
Yes,
Yeah.
so they never were installed, and they vanished, as I recall.
I guess the other, major project that we're working on is the wastewater treatment plant upgrades. We do have a basis of design report that we're reviewing on that work. That's another one where we can kind of tailor it to the budget. Our current the basis of design estimates are 4.1 million. So that's, if that's the engineer's estimate, so depending on the bidding circumstances, it could be a little bit more, a little bit less, but we're essentially in the ballpark of what we've been telling you guys, what's shown in the budget. Bid prices come in much higher, then things would get cut. If they come in much lower, we would try and add things that we're currently leaving off. It's all matter of where we drop the line.
That would like fix the process water, the roof, the other.
Yeah, I mean, the major system upgrades are, the mechanicals and clarifiers, the plant water system. Relocating electrical equipment that is susceptible to flood waters or eventually flooding. Stuff like that.
Can we digress and ask how it survived this latest high water? Do
Yeah,
we have any issues?
yeah, no, we were lucky. I have an acronym on my board in there, DFL, which I'll let you figure out what that means, but we did not have any inundation in any of the buildings. Obviously, the water was right up to the thresholds on the floors. Bigger wave action, a little bit more surge, might be different, but we came out of that pretty good. I would say from the wastewater plant, it was definitely an island, but it was a dry island. Yeah, we didn't have.
So we sandbagged all the doors, but we weren't that confident. The water was gonna rise too.
Yeah, the first storm, we actually did get some water in the biofilter room, which, it's a bulkhead to below grade. There is a sump in the bottom of that, so it didn't, cause any damage or anything. It wasn't. But But so then the second storm is back to back.
There's no burn work or anything, it's.
Not in this design. No. Although those are the major things we're working on, and minor things we want to highlight.
We're doing fire alarm upgrades at both of the plants. Both fire alarm systems are original, or 25 years old. So getting those replaced ahead of time. They're both proprietary systems. So going to a generic system that more fire alarm companies can work on to make it, pricing a little bit better when we do need repairs. So that's two things we're working on right now.
It's the Central Street culvert, we're still waiting
Yeah.
on the chapter 91 license. Still think we have money and the ability to do that work.
And when do you think you're starting?
So, if we got the chapter 91 license, today or, in the next month even, and, there's still a process to get to bidding. And then because of all the time of year restrictions and other permits that we do have in hand restrictions, we would be looking at fall of 25. So, we're now 18 months plus or minus from, the road going out, there will be a contract on board well before that.
Yeah.
And then I guess other things that we are looking at, especially you mentioned the storm damage. We did have some substantial damage to the seawall at Sticky Beach, also the Rotunda, the walkway out there. Obviously, we're under contract to design and build that, within the next 18 months again. So there's work there that will, solve that problem. But in the interim, we're going to have to do something. And then, of course, Ocean Street is another big one where we lose major sections of the road and the beach every storm that, like that.
What does that cost to fix, which I assume is.
So fixes is, being generous, it's, put a Band-Aid on it. So we, this last time we did have to immediately fix sections of road. That would probably run us, $5 to 10 grand in that range. Maybe at each location. We also brought in material, big protected stones and stuff like that, we had to hire outside contractors to help me that work. So, all in the 10 to 20,000 range, but to fix it.
Yeah, no, I meant pushing the sand and the stuff back.
Yeah, that we do, the pushing of the sand, getting the road back passable, that's all us, we do in-house, except for something minor, and one-off things that.
That's still 10 to 20 grand.
Yeah.
It's back at the wastewater plant, we completed DO, so dissolved oxygen energy upgrade recently. So basically, we have big blowers that push air through our process, and we put in sensors that monitor, our set point. So previously, we had just run the blowers at a constant speed, and now we can modulate those blowers so they run, basically to the set point and then not over it, so we're not getting big fluctuations, helps improve our process. But additionally, we're saving like 15,000. They're estimating we're going to save like 15,000 a year on energy there. And so kind of the other part of that project is the SCADA upgrade. So that's kind of upgrading all of the, computer logic, control panels throughout the plant. So we're wrapping up right now on that project, doing all the, there's a lot of bugs that you have to go through and troubleshoot as you bring processes online. So we're finishing that, troubleshooting all that, trying to get the plant to run a bit smoother through the process, and that seems to be helpful for the operators that before we had one computer that they could only go to operate certain pieces of equipment. Now they can pretty much in any part of the plant operate any piece of equipment throughout the plant. So that's very helpful for them. That's back on running back and forth. So be good to have those finally wrapped up, especially heading into our bigger upgrade. And things are going to be a lot more disturbed as they work through the construction and bring processes down. So that's a big one for us there.
Are there any issues with facilities after the general storms?
So the library definitely, had some damage. The chimney area, we actually had a chimney company out this week who did an inspection, And they're, based upon their inspection, they think just all the water is coming through the brick, coming down on the top of the chimney, which it doesn't have a cap on it or anything, and then just kind of seeping into the brick there and then in to the rafters, unfortunately. No, no.
Keep in mind, we had 7 inches of rain in December.
Yeah.
And got no load had in January so far. It's been substantial.
Oh, but I'm just, yeah, it's a pretty key preventative instrument to.
Yeah, so I mean. We've gotten a quote from them, it's about $7,000 to do that cap, just because of access up there, it's, you know, pretty, pretty difficult to get up to, stage it, and to even just to take the measurements to purchase the cap, because it's a custom size. So we'll be getting that done, unfortunately, they can't do some of the work until closer to spring. But, you know, once we get that area sealed, we can then move on to addressing, you know, the ceiling damage that was done on the inside. And then the basement, you know, had another flooding event. But fortunately, nothing was damaged, everything was raised up, and we got like 3 to 4 inches of water in there. So we do have the money to address that with the sump pump project over there. You can't really tell where it comes in through. It's, you know, little fissures, but from what they, you know, from what I could see when I was inspecting it all, you know, whether it came in under the door, you know, the side door, wasn't very apparent. There wasn't like any leaf material or anything like that.
Seawater.
I don't think so. Yeah, we need to do more investigation. There's some drains down there that we're not exactly sure where they go to. Yeah, I did not taste it, no. No.
No, but looking at the site, it's not conducive for the surface water to drain away from the building.
Yeah, and we did do quite a bit of drainage work on this in the alley there on the side,
Okay.
out that side door over the summer.
Yeah.
To fix some of the drainage issues, and since then, we haven't seen any, you know, it used to pond,
That's,
you know, in that area, and we haven't seen that ponding since then, so there has been an improvement, it's just is, yeah, I think like Chuck said, we had 7 inches of rain in December, you know, not the usual time you would see that flooding there, or when they've seen it in the past. So. I think over at the, you know, the fire department, they did have water come in, you know, the garage on both occasions, and the last one, I think right at peak high tide, it did get crested the boiler room threshold, so, you know, that's, you know, another concern. No damage, fortunately, but, you know, I think it just shows that we're not too far off on, you know, another event like that being high enough to damage some of the equipment in there, and similarly this building. So it's kind of a reminder that, you know, we will certainly need to sandbag, you know, all those entrances on any type of occasion like that again.
And this building,
We sandbagged pretty much all the entrances on the back here, the garage, the 2 side entrances. The first one, when we didn't sandbag, because it just came up so quickly. I don't think anyone was really anticipating that, you know, especially based on the number of cars that were in the parking lot that day. If anyone saw that, mine included, the way through the water, but, you know, it crested right at the base of the garage, you know, right at the garage entrance. And the second time around, it was again pushing, you know, it's a good thing we had sandbags out, right? I'll say the second time. So it's the water's there.
we have a couple of pumps, emergency in case.
Oh, yeah, between DPW, fire department, yeah. But again, you know, all the mechanical equipment, all the electrical gear is on the same level as that garage.
Right.
So it's, yeah.
Question, I know you mentioned tide, is the issue with the fire department building tide related, or is it Sawmill Brook backing up? And I'm just curious, because when we do the culvert, is there a way to keep the water flowing one way but not back another way? And I don't know if this is a possibility.
Unfortunately, not with what they would allow us to design, you know, so initially that's how kind of the tie gate would help.
Right.
But we are removing the tie gate, we are increasing the opening area of the culvert, so there is in theory, there's more throughput. But at the same time, you're meeting that, you know, when you have a high tide, there's really no place for the water coming down Sawmill to go, it just, you know, it is what it is, whatever that tide is gonna be. You know, and then you kind of compound it if, you know, if it's more of a coastal surge, that's better for the Sawmill Brook area because you're not getting as much water coming down, so you're not getting that, you know, as high of a backwater rise, whereas if we have like a large rain event compounded with that tide, then that's when things will be not good.
Good news for Snap Valley.
Okay, so let's go on to the fiscal year 25 operations and capital budget, or do you want to first talk about the water meter rates thing?
Yeah, maybe this is a good segue into rates. So we discussed the, you know, needs that we're gonna have for PFAS as well as the meter upgrade. You know, I've been trying to think of, you know, ways to pay for that. One of the things that I've seen in, you know, other municipalities and, you know, water supply systems is a fixed fee rate structure. It is not replacing the, you know, pay for what you use fee, but it gives you that base structure to, you know, pay for your fixed costs, because like 90% of our costs are fixed. And then when we're looking at these capital items, you could also connect them to capital expenditures. So it doesn't have to be permanent. It's, you know, it's just a fee that, you know, you can have or not have. You can tell what you're spending in any given year if you wanted to, but the idea is that everybody has a meter. That's what they get paid on. I live in Wenham. We have a meter fee associated with the size meter that we have. And what I'm floating here is for Manchester's case, we don't have that, but I would say that we institute that as a mechanism to, one, stabilize our operating budget and reserves, but also to pay for these, you know, capital expenditures that are fairly significant. Just as a kind of back of the envelope calculation to kind of float this idea, I based it, you know, on trying to make $1 million more of revenue in a given year. So to put that in perspective, we have roughly 2,400, you know, plus or minus meters. And some people do have more than one meter for irrigation or deducts, stuff like that. But just to keep it simple, we say 2,400 meters. There's $100 quarter per meter. That's $400 a year. It's not insignificant. I'm not saying it isn't, but you know, in the grand scheme of your annual expenses, $400 seems like, you know, it's less than your cable bill, less than your cell phone bill. So that would essentially correspond to $1 million, which, you know, talking to Greg, would be roughly the debt service on a $12.5 million bond. So if we're looking at 25 million, that, you know, that's halfway there. So if you wanted to, you know, go to the extreme, you could pay for that entire bonding with a $200 a meter, you know, quarter fee, or you could have a gradation across all meter sizes. So your 5/8 meter is your typical residential meter. They typically, I think in our system, we go up to a 2-inch meter. 2-inch meters are, you know, that's a ton of water. So that's somebody that is irrigating a large field, or, you know, or it's there, have some other commercial use or some other, you know, reason that it's that. So, you know, theoretically, we're using that much more water. So I would, in Wenham's case, and, you know, the way I've seen it, you know, you have kind of a starting point. I think in the memo that I presented to the board and to you guys, it's, you know, starting at $75 for the 5/8 meter and then work your way up to $250, $300. So, you know, doing it that way based on the, you know, corresponding number of meters per size, you get to $1 million out. So that's just another way of doing it. Again, you can go a little bit higher, a little bit lower, dial it in however you want, but just to kind of illustrate how that would work. You know, I think kind of getting back to Maury's point earlier was, we potentially could be looking at a very large, capital expense over the next 5 years. I think this is a way that we can kind of count on and pay for that. And when we do start understanding that it's not 25, it's 15, or it's not, we're getting a lot of grant money or other things, you either dial it back or you eliminate it or you pay down the bond early. All these things are now on the table. I think as currently constituted, just by doing the traditional bonding route, or we're essentially relying on the tax base to flip this bit. And it doesn't seem like that's as conducive to, from where I sit, you guys correct me if I'm wrong, as conducive to going up and down and kind of paying as you go and making it kind of work. Is once you ring that bell, you're kind of in for it. Obviously, once you get a bond, that's right. Still, take the point. And then kind of one thing that I don't want to lose sight of is the fact that our revenue has now, our annual revenue based on our current rate structure is only just barely paying for our annual expenses. So take capital out of it, take any of that out of it, because we're seeing such irregularity in usage patterns because of drought, because of voluntary restrictions or mandatory restrictions, and all of these different things. Our revenue is kind of bouncing up and down, and we're getting to a point where our trailing 4 quarters of revenue are not the same as our annual operating expense. So I also look at this as a way of kind of stabilizing that, so that we are, don't have a down year on the revenue side, and all of a sudden, coming to you guys saying, we don't have the money to pay for the water that we do use. So at some level, we do need a change in our rate structure. There is the argument for raising the current rate structure, or there was a task force that promoted conservation rates where the highest users are paying more. But I feel like that is a situation where we're just going to basically kick the can down the road, and our rates are going to go so high. There's no real justification. It's just putting your finger in the air and saying, okay, I think this year it's going to be dry, or I think it's going to be wet, or we are not going to have inflation or something. There's too much guessing from where I sit, so that's why I think this is a much more stable approach over the long term.
So you mentioned trailing 4 quarters of revenue isn't covering expenses.
It currently is, but it's very close.
Yeah.
It's within a couple percent. It's not like we have 10% remaining or something.
Yeah. So high level, I guess that's where I'm going. High level, you'd be in favor of support, raising the rates, like just keep the current structure. Like if you raise them 5%, like is that, you see what I'm trying to get at?
Yeah, so you could do it that way, and you could raise the rate on those. I think again, if you get in a situation where you might get to a point where people at the higher end, because let's face it, the higher rates are subsidizing the lower tiers, the higher tiers are subsidizing the lower tiers. And so at some point, it's going to flip where people don't use that higher tier, or they're not allowed to. So we have to force conservation. And then we will not have that revenue, and we will be at a point where it's the 5% that you had that lower tier doesn't cover you're not seeing that 5% in your annual revenue.
Okay, I'm lost.
Sorry.
I'm just trying to come at it simply and just say like, if you're saying that right now the revenue and the expenses are about a wash, and I'm just trying to say,
Yeah.
If you wanted that to up, you obviously want it to be a positive way, a good way.
Yep.
And I'm just saying like,
So I'll try and
you're not gonna raise the rates 50%, right?
yeah, I'm trying to simplify. I'll try and simplify what is. So the idea is that as our revenue goes up or down, that's what I'm trying to, the problem I'm trying to solve. The water that we produce and sell also jumps up again. And so it's not consistent enough that I can say, let's raise it 5% this year because that makes sense and that will cover our revenue. It's not that fine tuned. If I could just say we're going to sell 5% more water and therefore the 5% revenue will be there, then I would agree with you. We're not there. That's what the problem I'm trying to solve.
Did you see a decline in the amount of revenue in calendar year 23 because of overrun?
Yes. So our peak, actually, believe it or not, over the last 5 years that I looked at it was for revenue was the COVID. So most people were home, they were using water in the winter, and we had a pretty healthy surplus based on usage. It's come steadily down, and on the flip side, our expenses have gone steadily up. So that's why we're getting so close to that. That's the problem that we're trying to solve. So the drought, extra rain, the mandatory restrictions, the non-mandatory restrictions, all these things. And, that's, I forget the number, but, the majority of our water is sold in the summer quarters, not the winter. So this kind of insulates us from that as well, because it's a quarterly charge.
The most recent bills reflected the new water rates that we get in the summer.
So
Did that help?
we have the, 2 quarters of the 2.5% increase from last July. So we're halfway through our fiscal year. But the trends are,
Trend of usage then.
both usage and rent.
One follows the other, right?
Can I take Becky's question from Becky? Go ahead, Becky. It's been up in one.
Hi, thank you. I just had a question regarding, meter fees. Becky Jakes, Select Board and 22 Forster Road. Sorry, there's a problem here. Hello. Anyway, I was wondering, Chuck, do you know what, neighboring towns or comparable towns charge for meter rates, and are they fixed or are they tiered? Thank you.
Thanks, Becky.
So the one that I'm intimately familiar with is Wenham, and it's a tiered water fee for your meter. So the bigger your meter, the more your fee is quarterly. And we have a similar rate structure in terms of, as you use more, the cost per thousand goes up.
So you've got 2 sections to your bill,
Yes.
fixed and
Yep.
consumption.
And so there was a fixed amount per quarter?
So it's different range, solving a different problem, but it's like 10 to 100. So the bigger meters are 100.
Oh, I saw it, the size of it, but for a typical home?
$10 a quarter.
So high level were cheaper or more expensive than what?
Well, currently we have no, Manchester has no meter fee, so that's is incorporated in what already. Then the cost per thousand is, I want to say more in Wenham than it is here.
So it's more when them twice, because you said it's a fixed fee, we don't, plus.
I will say the range of bills though is different because Wenham has, basically instituted, water bans, at first, May 1st, you cannot water your lawn. We're in a drought condition because we're in the issue.
It's all that.
Yeah, it's part of our, the way it works. There are certainly high users that say, we're having our green lawn. And we do, they do have to pay for it, but, I'd say by and large, our gallons per capita per day in Wenham is much lower than. So that's why rates are different.
But I think it's fair to say that the whole water billing arena is in transition. There are a lot of communities that are still selling water very, very inexpensively. And there are communities that have shifted and have raised their rates substantially. It's fair to say that the whole industry is just starting to a pretty significant transition where the days of cheap water are going to be ending. And most systems have undercharged for decades. But issues like PFAS and other quality and quantity concerns are really hitting the industry.
Yeah, absolutely.
What do you think's the time frame?
Wait, hold on. Not all at once. I think Andy was first.
I may have missed it, but I know you mentioned the proposed rate structure from the task force, which I thought something got postponed, but has that been scrapped?
So it's a select board decision. I'm not.
No, I realize. I guess I'm half asking.
Oh. I think we will not implement exactly what the water task force asked for. Their original proposal had 3 stages of rate rise 6 months apart. And
we are still struggling with the first step. I think that, speaking for myself, my guess is that we would probably favor a more conservation oriented rate than we currently have. There is a slight surcharge for more use, but it's on the 10% range and not on the 100%. But there's a lot of room between those. Yeah, just a comment. I lived in Ipswich for 6-7 years, and they had a seasonal rate. Summer was 4 times what winter was, just as a matter of concepts here, that's all. Cory?
I was just curious, Greg, the shakeout that you're thinking about or talking about, is that, you think, a 1 or 2 year sort of envelope, or do you think that's a 10-year envelope? How?
So I think it's probably closer to the 10-year.
Yeah.
There'll be a bigger and bigger range of rates as you compare one system to another. As systems address some of these major capital concerns and consumption concerns, that they will lead the pack, and there'll still be those who haven't touched it yet. So I think you will find a growing range of pricing.
And as neighboring communities look at the differentials, they'll say, why are we not doing what they're doing? And then it'll all average out to a mean behavior. Average behavior.
Yeah, but I think that's a 5 to 10 year process.
I guess I'll just expand a little bit on the conservation rate concept. You know, I'm not against that. However, I do see a future where, you know, we're kind of talking on both sides of our mouth, where we, whether it's 100% or 10%, that we go up on those higher tiers. At some level, they're called conservation rates because we're hoping that people will conserve and they will no longer be in those tiers. And so when that inevitably happens, because we've gone up 100% or 200% or whatever the number is, then people will either go well, or, you know, we've seen how that might work out, or they might, you know, reduce their outdoor consumption, or, you know, buy a whole bunch of rain. There are options at that level, but now that revenue goes away completely. And therefore, by definition, we will need to increase the lower tiers to make up for that shortfall. So that's my long-term, as Greg said, you know, looking the 10-year ahead, or I think it'll take less time for this to shake out in that way. And so what we've tried to do will ultimately have unintended consequences in my.
Well, I think the answer is somewhere between 10 and 100%.
Yep.
It's not close to 100, because you're right, if it's close to 100%, then all the stuff you said happens. It's close to the other end. Those people up there, you know, that's not, you know what I mean? So it's finding the balance, finding the middle point.
I have a hard time finding where that point is, and that's why I, with a different direction, just putting it out for kind of another way.
Yeah, I mean,
Our preliminary experience with the meters tells us that we're gonna probably get more conservation to new meters by fixing all those leaks that people don't know about. And 10% of the people have leaks that they don't know, that's significant system work.
And I think that certainly with the amount of money we're looking at, to remedy the PFAS, the cost of the meters themselves, that the last time round, I had a concern about this per meter charge. I think it does give a base income to the water departments. I think it might be worth a try. Putting some flexibility on it. We certainly don't want to be accumulating a lot of extra money in the enterprise accounts, because that's just another boat reserve fund.
Well, I think I've shown that we will not have.
We see this fact, but everyone is correct.
Yeah, does anyone have, Greg, Chuck, do you have any feeling about what money there might be? Are there places that are currently getting grants for PFAS remediation, and what order of magnitude are they relative to cost?
Also, the easy one that we do have kind of a baseline number is the kind of class action lawsuit. You know, the calculators are available for that kind of. It's only unfortunately around $500,000, like it wasn't substantial,
Okay, so that's not a grant, that's a,
well, that's funding that would be available to pay for PFAS. Sorry, and then on the grant end, I have not seen that actual number. Because right now, people that are over the threshold are significantly, they're over 20, based on today's MCO. And so there aren't as many of those. So the grant money goes further because they get on a rolling annual basis. When we need to address our issue, there will be a lot of other like systems, so splitting that money up. So I don't have a good answer for it.
No, I don't. It's a little too early to tell. Like, there are some communities that have received grants and recorded, 25 to 50%. But
Just 25% of, a really big number.
yes.
Wow.
But I don't think we can bank on that, just because as Chuck said, there's gonna be a lot of us competing for a fixed fund.
There are industrial towns where like PFAS and really through the roof. They're getting the grants. We have like background stuff. Next year, they're getting.
Yeah, I was just curious, Chuck, your thoughts on, we're about 2,600 households. What happens if people just flip out and go put wells in and we lose like a quarter of that base? Do you think that's likely, or do you think given topography and water, groundwater, that's just not even viable? But if the customer base erodes basically, or starts to erode.
I mean, if they're being honest with themselves and doing cost benefit, there's no way the drilling well is gonna be cheaper than $300 a year, upcharge on your water, right? Water quality's not good. Yeah, we offer a much better product than your well, and even then, so that's just the capital expense of the well. They're gonna have the same problem of treating that water to some level, whether it's a PFAS standard or not. So, I don't see that as a legitimate, people might be angry and they might, kick the tires on it. But I don't see it as a legitimate way to get a better quality or cheaper product in their home. And it's the Board of Health regulates their wells the way they're going to the same standard anyway. So I'm not trying to be adversarial. I'm trying to give a path forward that people can wrap their head around. That is more for, kind of the good of the community and the public health of the community. We should be willing to pay, and this is, as a large supplier, somebody in Monroe, that, does this, we should be willing to pay $300 a year for PFAS-free water that meets these criteria. I wish it wasn't $300 a year, but if that's the number, that's the number. And that's, again, still cheaper than my electric bill, it's cheaper than my gas bill, it's cheaper than my cable bill. So, at some point you get what you pay for.
Gee, what's a ballpark well? Not cheap,
I mean, in Massachusetts, you're looking at 5,000 to 10,000.
but I was gonna guess 10,
And that's without the.
It's that
Still a crapshoot.
in terms of what they did.
Well, how deep you have,
How much water you
You might go 50 feet, you might go 5.
how many rocks you have in the bank? None of us have any brain in it.
It seems like the quarterly rate approach is a smart. It's just kind of what will the world do around us?
I mean, it will certainly take a public awareness and a campaign to kind of make people understand. That's what we're having.
Water, when we're replacing the water mains. I read a report that, the lead in the system is far worse than PFAS, and that no amount is safe. And that we have a very old system here, and that there might be a lot of lead service lines. And we have, I looked into it a little bit, we have a betterment area now, but the people need to know ahead of time, before the water main comes through, that they might have a lead service line and ask them if they want to replace it. But that would be a lot more efficient to do when you're doing the water main than later on, as far as total efficiency of improving the. So I was hoping that maybe in future water main projects, we could at least notify the residents whether they have leads and give them an opportunity to save on the mobilization by doing it with that project.
We don't have that problem. So I do think about that.
Yeah.
We do have compliance issues with lead that we need to address, not that we're out of compliance, that we need to make sure we are in compliance. So like, for instance, School Street was a cleaning line job where you don't typically replace the surfaces, you just clean the main and then you blow it out. We do have that information. It's not 100% because some areas we don't have it, some areas we do. We do have a kind of prescribed industry standard for what we suspect might be lead. And so we have records that do have something.
Yeah.
And so we looked at all of those on School Street, for example, and we went and we back tested them and they were all negative. So we did not have a problem that needed to be solved on School Street.
Right.
We separate on PFAS. There is a DEP and EPA initiative for moving 100% of the lead out of any water supplies.
Right.
We have done, there's a prescribed, process that we have to go through. The first step was to basically get all your records and get a inventory list. So we have done that. We submitted it to DEP. The issue is where you had no record, you have to assume it's lead until you prove it's not. So it makes our numbers maybe look bad, but they're not.
Right.
It's a confirmed lead is, I forget the exact number, I wish I was hoping I could bring it with me. I think it's around 60, so out of the 2,400-ish, 60-ish, maybe have lead. And it's not the entire service, it's simply a gooseneck at the main. So everywhere that we've done water main, you've seen my red map in the last 6 years, if it was a replacement job, we've already replaced that gooseneck if it existed. So it gets done as a matter of, it has to be done.
Yeah.
And then so looking forward, we actually have a grant application with DEP right now to take that inventory list one step further,
Yeah.
which is to do public outreach and do, like I said, there's prescribed methods for identifying lead.
Yeah.
There's like scratch tests, and so we can literally send a QR code to people in their bill, say, hey, go scratch your pipe on your water meter, and then, send us the result. And, they can do it all on the phone and all that. Or, if we do 100% of the meters in town, we're gonna be in 100% of the houses, we will be checking for lead and confirming that we have no lead. So all that's in motion, we're getting 100% grant so far from DEP to do that next phase that I'm talking about.
Yeah.
So we'll make that, and then it's just a matter of how fast they make us replace all the ones that we do confirm are lead. So theoretically, if we still had 60 at the end of all that, I don't know, but say we did, if one of them wasn't on my list of, water main projects to replace, we might have to go to that one and say, we need to do some sort of cost sharing or something to fix this problem.
Right, and we have a mechanism for doing that.
Yeah. And so, and there will be federal dollars available for that construction. So it might be, especially if we're 60 or less, they might just write us a check and say, fix it.
Okay.
And we do put corrosion inhibitors in the water and put a biofilm on the pipe. So unless we do something really stupid, we'll get the leaching away from it.
Like food machine.
All the schools are tested, manually, all that stuff is done.
So let me just ask the board, what's the consensus on the flat meter charge?
It's a good idea. I don't know what the level of it should be, but I think the concept of having a stable income is a strong argument in favor of some fee.
Your thoughts, Mike?
Yeah, no, I agree. It makes it more like a user fee, right?
Yeah.
It's better than. You gotta pay for something either way, and the choice is between pushing it through a user fee, at least you're matching apples to apples, versus over here, you're pushing it through taxes, where it's commingled with that.
Yeah,
You're on board?
no, it make a $10 a home type charge, certainly, if it would help smooth out the revenue.
I think it's gonna be higher than that.
Well, that's what's. Will it be higher than that?
Yeah, the number.
Well, we gotta start somewhere, but, I think ultimately if it's paying for everything, it will be much higher. If it's, somewhere in the middle, then it's somewhere between 10 and 1%. That's, I think ultimately, I'll have to bring it back to the select board. I presented this to them as well. I think there was kind of back and forth and, you know, they wanted to talk to you guys about it, so we'll just talk to you guys and then we'll, we're not looking to do it tomorrow or the next bill.
Just to steal your number, your idea was $100 a quarter.
If it was a flat fee, that would be roughly $1 million for revenue.
So $400 a year per household. So,
And, I mean, I would like to sell it as a way, if we do it, that it's postponing a rate increase. You know, that we're doing one or the other, but not both.
I think we need both.
They go to different purposes.
So we could
Yeah.
stagger it, you know, but this one would be to bring it.
This is more geared for covering capital projects.
Right. The reason I like both is when it goes to higher rates, you can actually do things, you can conserve water, so if you wanna save money that way, you can do that, right? Obviously, in the fixed one, you can't, but that's okay, because you're paying that to be like a member of the club, right? Like you have to pay for the access, right? So you have both.
I mean, we'll fine tune it a bit and, you know, there'll be future discussions. We're not doing it for your next bill, but, you know, if, as long as there's general support, you know, I think we can bring something forward.
Operating.
One,
That is-
129?
The DPW starts on the 29th.
So the salary number, I'm sure you've seen this in other departments, but essentially, yeah, this was taking into account, the contracts negotiations from last year. So this year's budget was based on 2.5%, which ended up being, you know, in reality, 3.5%. So then once you add 3% to that 3.5%, you know, our salaries look like we're increasing it year over year, 7.2%, but that's not.
So what was the contract increase?
So this current fiscal was 3.5, and this coming fiscal 25 is 3.
Sorry, I didn't hear your answer. What was it this year? Thank you.
But, you know, in general, that's just essentially keeping the same staff and the same hours, overtime, part-time, all that stuff. It's essentially addressing the contract issues. You can see we held overtime salaries flat.
Is overtime mostly driven by storms? Is that mostly the overtime?
Actually, that's not considered in this.
Most of the sports is in so
Yeah, that snow and ice is a separate budget. This is more your summertime, you know, there's trash issues that go around town on busy weekends. Yeah, that's, and then, you know, it's a 3 or 4 hour minimum depending on the call in. As well as just any sort of, you know, general operations that go on Saturdays or something.
Trees in the way of the street.
Trees, beach cleaning, we start off hours, so that's also one overtime stuff. That's mostly summertime stuff.
That sandbagging stuff.
Yeah, that was all
Rare,
during
but that obviously contributes, right?
Yep, so that was not a snow and ice event, that was a, you know, just random storm event, so yeah, that would have been, but your standard storm response, snow stuff is a separate.
So just a question, the 7.2 is really covering the delta from last year plus this year. So it's,
That's what it looks like.
I just want to make sure it's not going to show up next year.
And then, you know, the other operating expenses took a little bit different approach this year. I didn't just go, you know, 2.5 across the board or anything like that, but I did think that I had the ability to hold certain things flat that I think will stay flat, and then add, you know, more substantial dollars where I think we'll need it. I think the one that I'm sure jumps out is the professional services line. The reasoning for that is, you know, we do have these facility projects that are, you know, now under us. And we're trying to, you know, we do need to hire consultants for certain things. So Dave mentioned the fire alarm. That is something that we don't really have great expertise in. So we needed to, you know, pay a consultant $5-10 grand to, you know, put those documents together and make sure we're getting the right
These
product.
things like the library chimney? Yes.
So that would come out, not necessarily a consulting service for that, but, you know, for example, at the library, doing the generator design. So like last year, we approved purchasing the generator, but doing the, you know, sizing it correctly, doing all the like layout for, you know, the electrical tie-ins and all that sort of, you know, background engineering that you need to be able to bid the projects. So it's like those, it's, you know, generally smaller, you know, in scale than our DPW water main projects, but there is that necessary engineering that you need for, you know, whether it's HVAC, electrical, plumbing type thing. So it's getting those little, you know, we'll say mid-sized projects, you know, out to bid and completed.
Looks like tree maintenance is very variable. Do you have a sense of what it is year to date? It seems like there's a lot of tree hearings.
So we typically, yes. Sorry, my fruit's on, she's laughing. So we have, we typically encumber the entire, so we have a tree contractor
Okay,
that we will try and encumber the entire budget, say, so 55, yeah, so 55,000. So that's encumbered right now, if you look at my, you know, monthly report. We pay as we go in terms of, we draw that purchase order down based on the contract rates. So, you know, if it's takedowns, then that's a different rate than pruning, so on and so forth. Certainly, I would say we try and address things in real time, you know, if it's pruning or takedown for whatever reason. But we do try and save some of that money for these storm events when we had, you know, this year especially, we had quite a few storm events where trees came down and whatnot. And, you know, certainly some debris that, you know, we needed expertise or the additional contractor. So that is very good. And then when we get to spring and, you know, we're through kind of the storm season, we take a look at what we have left. It's also a scheduling thing, so we can carry over that PO to the following year. So you might see, you know, looking back that it was extended kind of up and down, but essentially all that money either gets carried forward and used in, you know, the next year. So that's why it kind of balances, but say this year, we're actually trending, we spent a lot of money on trees. based on-
35 to date.
Yeah, so, you know, we're
100%.
more than 50% through our tree budget this year. Sure.
A couple of years ago, I think when Mark was involved with this committee, we talked about the town's responsible from like center of the road to 7 feet out. And then we were thinking about, okay, let's move it out to 11 feet. I don't know if I have those numbers correctly. And then we started thinking, all right, geez, what does this mean for the town? Like how much tree responsibility do we have to take on? Did that ever come to fruition? And are you guys feeling the pain of that? Or is that been just kind of like, maybe give us an update on that today?
So we do have a tree policy that was adopted by the select board. So that's when you're looking at the 11th. And so, you know, there was some back and forth when we were developing that based on this very issue. The other problem is, you know, there used to be a wall that was blocking the tree and now that, you know, it's gone. So we were, you know, the policy said, you know, if there's a wall, we don't hold behind your wall. You know? So things like that. But then there's also certainly records going back where the town planted this tree, and so it's a town tree, and we own it. So there's a lot of kind of nuance as we go through and try and implement the policy. And you know, tree contractors are expensive, so you know, most homeowners don't want to take on that cost if they can get the town to pay for it. So that's why we've, you know, tried to stick to the policy as written. I would say, you know, we tend to own more trees than I wish, but it's the way it is.
So the town owns more trees than you wish, but that policy change to increase the number.
yes.
Yeah.
Which is why we didn't particularly support it.
That seems great.
So from a policy point of view, do you feel like you're keeping up with this, or is this kind of like the elephant in the closet that may kick its way out in a few years, or?
I mean, I just try to tread water. I mean, honestly, I don't want to be the tree police, but
Right.
you know, someone's gonna do it. We're paying a lot of money. It's so far, it's, you know, supported the budget one way or another.
Do the utilities help with that? Like, does National Grid do any of this?
We do look at that. They do, you know, clear their lines. And certainly if there's an issue that's within the line, we don't touch it. So that's not something we take on. But yeah, there's a lot more than just those trees. It's,
It's a topic that can take up a lot of time. The tree hearings are lengthy.
Well, and the problem is when you put bans in, you only make the problem worse. I lost 7 trees in the back half of my yard. Now, it's not irrigated, but I lost 7 trees in the back half of my yard in 2021 from the drought.
What, Greg,
And they were huge trees. You know, these weren't little saplings.
you said there, like to hear, what are the two main, you've got on the one hand, like, a landowner, homeowner that wants to get free tree work done, and then on the other side, you get people that don't want anybody to touch a tree
Right.
because it's hurting Mother Nature? Is that kind of the?
Yep.
Okay.
That's one of the classes. There's a lot of passion around trees.
Any other questions on the operating budget?
What's the logic behind what's in this side and what's on the facilities?
Well, we'll do facilities separate.
Yeah, but we're gonna do that tonight.
Yeah, we have facilities and we have water and sewer.
This is small dollars, but you know, the travel and meals and the signs. Is the budget amount is just like a lot higher than what the actual is been.
I'm surprised about signs, because I feel like we should. I'll check that number, something doesn't seem right about that, but,
Yeah, that's it, too.
what was the other one?
The
travel and meals.
Yeah.
That's $4,000 versus $170.
Yeah. Usually I don't go to many conferences, I guess I'll have to book one in San Diego. if you can get me.
Or we lost budget on that.
Yeah, I mean, so, you know, I was essentially, yeah, we're trying to keep it flat, I guess, but, yeah.
Will work.
Yeah, we're also held to the bottom line, so, you know, if I.
Oh, that number, I think you would advocate for putting it someplace else.
I mean, it looks to me like you can lower travel meals by easily $3,000, you're still well over actuals. Signs. $4,000.
This size one doesn't make sense to me, that means something got built in the wrong spot last year, but,
And I mean,
that's, we do actually spend a lot of money on signs.
So it's like the flashing, gesture.
Well, those we got through a grant, so, but the things like the posts, the speed limit signs.
Sewer signs, we keep changing those.
All those types of things. Those actually are, those are a couple grand a pop, so I know we spend, not a pop like each one is, but we buy, you know, stock of a couple 100 feet of them, and it's, you know, it's a couple grand, so. I just, that number's not. Right.
You think you have enough in the fuel oil? I mean, it's been going up.
So the actuals in 2023 were 3% less than the budget,
for which,
fiscal year 23.
for what line?
The total,
So it's.
the total expense was 3% different, which is.
What's the answer to the question?
Because of your line.
That's one caught my eye too. Are you coming up?
He's gonna take it from his travel.
Yeah. So. Yeah, I mean. What? Issues, but.
Well, if you go back and look at the actual in 2023, it was substantially less than its budget.
I noticed that, yes. I don't have a given answer here, I'm just being sure it's kind of work.
No, this is the
That's the highway, right, so.
literally gas,
Yeah.
you know, trucks.
I mean, we have been trending down over the past few years on our actual fuel usage, you know, for trucks and whatnot. I think partly that's storm related. We haven't had as many winter storms. We're running all the big trucks for, you know, 20 hours at a time. So I think it's partly that, but we have been, you know, on, you know, through MEI, where we track all of our fuel consumption online. Has been trending, but
Also not covered, transfer station.
correct.
Correct, but that wasn't a.
Yeah.
It's here.
Yeah. You'll-
So, Frank, this reminds me of a conversation we had about gasoline, right, when we were talking with police about,
Getting one of the station, get the stations to bid on it.
right. So,
Yeah, we'll pursue that.
I just, as we talk, there's that, whatever thing you just mentioned, the 3-letter acronym, it's like, you could do
The
both,
ones, yeah.
right? Like, you can keep that neat little tool to do all your tracking, but you could also get kind of a wholesale discount for committing to a certain number of gallons. That'd be good.
Yeah.
Figure between DPW, police, fire, on
It
gas.
all seem to be at the mobile at the end time.
Just not the cheapest gas station, right?
It's the cheapest one in town.
Right,
It's not the cheapest one around.
yeah, but we have to pay hourly wages to have them go out of town.
No, understood, but there's 3 gas stations in town, which is why I'm saying, then you make a proposal, like, we're gonna commit to buy a certain number of gallons, you have the 3, you have a little bit of healthy competition.
yeah.
You know, might end up with 10 cents off a gallon.
Right.
Better than a truck sticking there.
Okay, are we good on the operating budget? Do I have a motion to approve DPW operating budget in the amount of $1,252,000? $352,800.
Still having. Second.
Peter moves, Lori seconds. Any discussion? Take a vote. Dean,
Yes.
Peter,
Yes.
Maury,
Yes.
Andy.
Yeah.
Mike,
Yes.
Tom,
Yes.
and Sarah votes yes. Now we go to snow and ice.
Today's one, this is just status quo. Way the accounting works on this is we keep it the same every year.
Oh, no, we brought it down last year.
Well, yeah, that's true.
Based on the 5-year average, I think.
How do we look fiscal year to date for action?
Well, pretty good because the storms we were talking about, the big flooding storms, don't come out of this budget. So that'll be my full-time budget, not this budget, but we've only had one big storm this year. I think the budget would support several storms, I don't know the exact arguments on duration. But certainly we can absorb more than one, which is really all it has to be.
So just. I get we've had a lot less snowstorms, but just high level to the nearest 20 grand, do you know where we are fiscal year to date, like?
What would happen if we do the same we did last year, look at the 5-year average and let that be our guide? And then we did last week.
Unfortunately, actually, the budget I'm looking at is only through December, and that was in January, so I'm up to date. So through December, we were at 0, literally.
We haven't
We had
seen
paid for one
the
invoice.
second quarterly report yet for the year. I think Andrew's done it. I think has she done it? Usually it's supposed to be the 3rd week of the quarter. A
Right, but
month afterwards, I thought.
Chuck just said it's 0 anyways, at the end of December, so.
No, he's saying it's December month, which would be,
Just through December, we had 0 storms.
They say through December.
okay.
We paid to fill the salt shed, basically. In December, obviously, January.
Some storms.
Any responses, one. Which was on.
It wasn't significant.
And Greg, can you remind us again, with snow, does it drop down to reserves Or can you carry it through to the next year? What is, something is different about this
If you
stuff.
overspend,
You can deficit spend
Okay,
and make it up the following year.
okay.
If there's extra, it just goes into your fund balance.
Everything goes to the public.
I was hoping it might be different.
But aren't there limits, there's some constraints of.
right,
Correct.
we adjusted it last year, we had Andrea look at the 5-year average.
Right. I think
And
there's
then we
some rule,
dropped it to 160.
there's some rule, like, they wouldn't want us to drop it to like 50 grand. And then immediately go over, like, because then you're kind of intentionally playing the game.
Correct.
Right, that's, but I like Peter's idea, of looking at some trailing fund.
The approach last year was reasonable, and now we're leaving for about 150 instead of 160.
But we don't know, we don't.
I understand, I'm just looking at the numbers here.
I mean,
We know it's zero at the end of December, yeah.
we dropped it from 202 down to 160 2 years ago, fiscal year 24.
No, I just think it's a reasonable discipline.
Okay, can we get that 5-year average? Okay, so we'll hold on this. Just have to remember to keep it on hold. Sanitation.
So so we're in year 3 of our Republic plus JRM contracts, so that's actually flat, so we're doing well on that. Wheel Liberator, which is where our waste goes, that will go up 3% next year. And that's the final year of that contract, so we will be, next year this time, we will have a new number in place. The majority will go up more than 2.5%. We are hopefully within finish line of the compost facility and them completely taking over transfer station operations on Wednesday and Saturdays. So that's why that budget went to 0. We do right now will have an annual contract with Black Earth. For that.
Where's that?
It's in the disposal company. Yeah. It's not broken out, it's. They're 370 and the 230.
We're in exchange for the facility. No,
Yeah, so it's like if we had not done the facility, we were at 70,000 a year range. Now it's much more reduced.
much more reduced.
Like 50K in a month. Because there are triggers that have to be power.
I'm looking at, right, I'm looking at,
There's 2 different pages, Mike, 136 and 138.
I'm looking at 138.
Yeah.
And I'm comparing, say, like 23 budgeted to 23 actual. It came in 66 grand in good way. Right. And would you know the first half of?
Right, so that's why we didn't go the full 3% of the budget. So you see, it's, even though our rubbish disposal costs are going up 3%, we increased it 1.7. Because we felt like we had extra money.
But might be a better conversation to have. In 23, Republic bought out JRM. They never built us for our officers.
Oh, yeah, that's right. We knew that, we heard that last year, yeah.
I'm just trying to high level just justify the 605 of the 605 spot, the 609 compared to 534, 544.
Well, he's talking about the dumpsters, he's not dealing with.
I can't not budget the house.
So where are we halfway through fiscal 24?
So I encumber the POs for all of the contracts every year, whether or not they get traded. That's invoiced over the course of the year is up to the contractor to should be billing. So the encumbered number is probably almost identical to the 605 number, with maybe a little bit of play.
Is the collections,
So our tonnage does change.
the collection is fixed,
Fixed.
the difference is in disposal.
Depends how much tonnage
Okay,
we pay by the ton.
Yep.
So there can be some fluctuation.
The tonnage rate is going up the 3 point, okay, going up,
2%,
yeah, 3%.
right,
And has the tonnage been varying much, or are we pretty constant?
Definitely COVID was much higher because people were cleaning stuff out, but it's pretty standard in the 1,000 tons to 1,100 tons a year.
Just
People
on the,
who compost, that's the heaviest part of their waste stream, so. That can lower our
is it going to be some type of attempt to encourage more people to do that? I don't think it's been broadcast very well.
not recently. It could be another around.
Particularly with all those textiles and stuff.
Yeah, I think there'll be in this coming fiscal year, there'll be more concerted effort between the sustainability committee as well as Black Earth operating the site. Things happen online. I think you'll see more.
Is there any thought to having the day of the week in the middle of the week for trash the same as the compost?
I think it is.
No, trash is Wednesday, compost is Thursday.
For me, it's.
So we need for the drop off, not the curbside.
I'm sorry, drop off.
Okay, yeah, I haven't discussed that. So.
Might make it easier for people and encourage more
The-
composting.
The issue that we don't want is, like, if it. The entrances are gonna be different, and so if we have, people coming up to use the transfer station for trash recycling. And then we also have people doing leaf and,
Okay.
yard waste truck.
Yep,
off,
okay.
We're gonna potentially have.
Yeah.
one other question, I know, in the whole Black Earth agreement, there was a certain level of town material going onto the site and a certain amount of other external customers coming onto the site. Are we balanced on that? Are we keeping an eye on that? Is that where it's supposed to be?
So we have tonnage numbers that they're held to, and we have the ability to raise them if we think that it would work, but it's a town decision, not a block decision. They owe us those reports. For
And you're getting those reports and we're good on that as well.
At the existing site, it's on its blackboard, but certainly.
We will, we
Sorry, sorry.
Okay.
Yeah, good. Just the, mechanism for weighing and everything is.
Right. The whole economics of it, it was what would work for them financially, what would work for us as a town. There was balance, so.
Yeah.
Just make sure we'll wake up someday and find out, gosh, we're serving 90 communities.
Well, and there was,
It's just not feasible, the tonnage, the throughput they can put. And we will see it coming. It's a very stepwise process. So,
And it's regulated by DEP as well.
Oh, okay, good.
yeah.
and at the compost site, there's no oversight. And I don't know to what extent they're looking for stickers on cars for trash.
They have been very.
Are they doing that?
On at the transfer station, for sure.
Yeah, there's somebody stationed there.
Yep.
Those are
Yeah,
what-
that is not followed.
Yeah. Second, just kind of a free thought. Okay. Any more discussion on these budget items?
I guess, why wouldn't we just keep it as a fiscal factor? I know it's like 4.7%, but.
I mean, I don't particularly care as long as if I go with the 609 or something like that. I think the tonnage is not, so dialed in, and, certainly with the dumpsters and all that stuff, like there's a lot of wild cards here, so. Just trying to be cognizant of that. It also becomes an issue down the road when we negotiate new contracts, if, you know, I mean. The money will have to come from somewhere. But I would leave it like, just different way to.
How many dumpsters do we have? Mascanoma Park? Is there one up here?
Same beach is the big one in the summer.
That's fine.
So there's four, we have, one at the yard for certain things.
Isn't there one at Mascanoma?
Yeah, right,
I'm sorry.
so there's five.
And then you pick up from like fire department too, right?
I'm sure what the chief does. You know what they do?
I assume they just put it to the curb.
They probably-
I saw it on the curb and there were no orange bags.
Well, we you know, like TPW trash, like, you know, we just bring it up to the, you know,
That's what I thought.
stuff at the transfer station.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what I thought.
The tonnage is paid for through this budget, but.
Right. You don't do the orange bags.
The fire chief can see it. Should we be talking all about the revenue for bags for this year? Comment, I remember ringing in my ears from last year, you raised that price and people drop it on the side of the road. But is that anything we should be thinking of here?
It's probably the ability to raise it a little bit.
I mean,
I think that's the carrot and stick, right? At the same time, you promote the composting. Right, you do both at the same time, that gives the financial incentives to compost as much. Yeah.
I don't know what the appetite is for it around town, but the, you know, the other thing is when this contract is up in 30 years, you know, lots of these, you know, Wenham, Danvers just did it where it's, you know, automated pickup. So instead of a bag, you have a bin. It's provided by the contractor to, you know, pick up. So that's kind of the next phase of, you know, if we decide to go there right now.
Unless they lock in, they are.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, yeah, there's one guy on the trucking side too and stuff like that, so that's why they like, you know,
They-
which also helps on the, you know, litter side of things when, you know, animals get in the trash and stuff like that.
So what's the argument against?
Well, it is an expense up front.
You gotta pay up front for the bag.
Well, there has to be some mechanism, whether it's they just built it in the contract or we pay outright, or we pay residents pay it, there's all same sort of, you know, somebody wants to do it, there's, yes.
Something that's,
You know, we have grants and stuff that, you know, could potentially offset some of it, but yeah, stuff like that. That might be something that we're either encouraged to do, or we at least, you know, contemplate in the next one.
And when is the next contract?
The FY 26.
so one more year.
So July of
Well-
25. July of 25 is when this contract's up.
July 26. We'll have a new contractor in place July.
So
Okay. Okay, so FY 27.
It might not be a new contractor.
I mean, end of the day, those towns you mentioned that went that road, obviously, it saved money, right? I mean, that-
I don't think it's like substantial.
it's not very exciting, so
Um,
you get away from the bags.
Well, I just thought that you said one guy in the truck versus two, I mean, that's, you know,
Yeah.
unfortunately, labor's the biggest cost for almost any organization.
I mean, they have to have the truck's more expensive upfront for them, you know, so it's just how they, you know. There's a lot of external factors that we can't really.
I guess high level, we should be looking into it and see.
Well, we'll put out a proposal or, you know, and get proposals. Marketing to towns like too.
Okay. And why did the pay for throwbacks go up so much?
I'll have to ask Andrew, I'm not.
I think we're looking
Controlling
at
that.
the actual for food.
It's about whether we should do here fee.
In where you are this year.
It's one of those ones where we cover it.
Yeah.
Kind of thing. So. So they don't bill us monthly, they bill us when they make the run of bags. So it's not.
Greg, do you think we can get the second quarterly report by our next week's meeting?
Yeah.
It seems a little late, and I think that would help us.
Yep.
When we're doing the budgets.
Already expended 20,000 now.
We don't wanna wait on this for that report.
Yeah, that might just be an odd, that's.
So we don't wanna hold both these until we have,
I don't know.
okay. Facilities,
So I think we were generally flat, except we did, up the athletic field and park and beach maintenance pretty substantially to match kind of what we've been spending on beach rating is private for us, but you know, everything's more expensive. I think most of those you can see that were kind of at budget, so. This one was ones where a lot of unforeseen issues, so like they were saying, we had issues at the library. Today, we had the boiler go down at the library. So that would cost when we go fix it, so stuff like that all over all the facilities is just addressing it, so obviously if we overrun these for whatever reason, I think that necessity. Just things are at the end, they're just like.
No.
Any service contracts for?
Yeah. Boiler generators.
Yeah.
Anything else?
Boilers, generators.
HVAC.
Yeah.
Condensers.
Yeah, HVAC in general for all the buildings, generators, and there's just like other miscellaneous smaller, you know, those are the two big,
Extinguishers.
yeah, extinguishers, like it's pump stations. It's not facilities technically, but yeah, there's a lot of miscellaneous contracts that we utilize people for.
those are under professional services.
No, those would be under the.
Typically, they're under the
Yeah,
maintenance line.
yes, the contractor, yeah.
It's not huge dollars here, but one more situation where it'd be nice to see that those two quarters of actual, so that's the
You know, this year, yeah.
Okay, we'll hold it.
It, a lot of stuff, it's done in the spring.
So, you know,
Damage.
what I'm looking at is, you know, just the bottom line, we're at 49% at 6 months, so we're, you know, right on. We are overspent on town hall.
you're 49% of the 151. The current facility.
Actually, I take that back, we're 61%. I think it's 108. On the, what I'm looking at,
108 is other expenses, not the salaries, yeah.
yeah,
So 61% of the 108.
The facilities questions. The athletic fields maintenance and park and beach maintenance. Would that be better under the parks and recs budget?
Just to be there.
Yeah,
It was just pulled out.
okay, so we're kind of, no, well, it used to be under the
Because
DPW had it.
DPW is doing the maintenance. And so the facilities was pulled out of DPW.
Right, so that, but, and before that, it was pulled out of parks and recs.
Right.
Okay, so now it's,
Nobody
this
was.
is a new home. Well, it's an issue that people are not maintaining the stuff.
So based on the fact that there's 61% of expenses year to date, do you think it could go down?
No. Except the budget is presented at 175,000
For the facilities
for the
department?
facilities department.
There's a-
I'll second.
80 seconds. Any discussion? Ready to vote?
Yep.
Steve,
Yes.
Peter,
Yes.
Lori,
Yes.
Andy.
Yeah.
Mike,
Yes.
Tom,
yes.
and Sarah votes yes. Streetlights. Oh, God, streetlights.
This one's Nate.
So we have this year completed quite a bit more than past years. I'm not sure if it's reflective in the actuals for last year because we had a couple of line items from actually when we bought them initially and from a grant that I used as basically the first money this year to get rid of those lines, kind of since they are so old, and working on now, the existing line items. Unfortunately, my computer died, so I don't have that in front of you out there.
So the 23 actual was 28,000. And this year's budget's 30,000. Oh, plus the 25 for repair and maintenance.
So I mean, I get directionally coming down a little, seems like we could come down a little more.
So what you don't see in the actual in 23, I think is what Nate was just talking about, where we were using some old grant money.
Right.
So we didn't have to use our money because we had some leftover grant money. So it's not that we didn't do,
Yeah.
it's not like we had zero expended in repairing or maintaining streetlights. We were using another source.
So the combined actual with the grant is close to the 60 that was budgeted.
Yeah, exactly.
To ask the same question again, fiscal year to date, you know?
So we've only spent 10% so far this year.
10% of the 60.
So I think we're missing. We're definitely missing some invoices that came in recently.
Yeah, so I mean, what we've been doing for our maintenance is we've had a mutual aid or whatever you want to call it, an agreement with Howard Danvers who does their own streetlights and have their own electric utility. So we've only been able to get them certain days, not during, Monday to Friday. So, it's been hard to get them, but that's kind of the way we've been doing it. In the winter, they're on call and all that, so we're not really getting them.
Do we have a set fee with them
I
or
think
is it hourly?
I think it's a day rate,
Yeah,
it's a day like a truck and
Okay.
a guy or two.
A certain crew. We've got a lot of the low hanging fruit now. Now it's gonna be the ones that we have to dig up the street and like, I think one that probably everyone knows about is the one outside Jamie's Road feet. There's that line, wherever that goes, whatever manhole in that street that goes to, that line is broken and we can't pull through a new cable. So in some form, we're gonna have to dig up, So those the ones that we have remaining are gonna be the costly ones where we're having to get, a utility contractor to dig, then we're paving, patching, like we're going through sidewalk and curbing. So that's kind of we've got a lot of the low hanging fruit.
Is there any plan to switch out some of the other lights that are not street lights to make them night compliant and LED, like the 2 floodlights behind Town Hall, the one at Morse Pier? Is there any intention of changing those out? Morse Pier shines into my bedroom and I'm up on Bennett Street.
Okay.
Is that right?
I can't picture that one, but I mean, yeah,
I think it might be the Sandy Beach.
No, that's off in the winter. That's during the summer, yes, but Morse Pier's on at night.
I just invest on a slingshot.
Yeah.
That's what I think,
And
that's
the
what
town hall lights are terribly bright.
Okay. Yeah, there's definitely the bigger floodlights. So it's like we get it both ways where people want it darker,
Right.
and then other people that say, we want it brighter because you can't see when we're out walking or whatever the case. So
But the
it's
town hall
definitely,
lights don't light parking.
which
The 2 big floodlights behind the police station.
I think that's for PD. So they're,
Yeah, but they're not, there's no covering over the top of it.
okay, yeah.
That's what
I
I'm
see.
connecting, yeah.
Then you went down like.
Sounds like-
Oh,
Yeah.
we'll look at that.
Sounds like trees. While you're assembling the list. The Tux Point bathrooms could use a motion sensor.
I think we
I will
are.
tell you, that
We-
light
we
is
have a-
on through the winter time and the whole place is boarded up and no one's there.
It's off now.
If it comes on over.
I think we have a,
But it could use, it's a fluorescent, it could use an LED with a motion sensor.
I think that is a project that.
Yeah,
There's touch point money available.
I'll help with it if you need.
I think that's on the list.
You see that when you pass? Yeah, see.
Switch.
On the street lighting thing back, what governs, like, generally a small town, you put a street light where there's an intersection on the road, that's about it. But so some of these lights, can you just say, if nobody really wants them, can we not put them back up? Or like the one at Jamie's Roast Beef, I'm thinking that's not really, there's an intersection.
yeah, I don't know what
Why put it
what
back?
laws govern that, whether it's that's something I should look into. We haven't added any streetlights.
Right.
We've basically been maintaining.
Right.
We do get the random request to put streetlights down Colbert or.
Right.
Like, very, off the beat. So that is something, I'll look into that and see what, because like you said, we do get requests. Dim the light, turn it off. If you drive around, you'll see people have taken ladders and put duct taped like one side of, the post op lights. There's a few around that people have duct taped, the side that faces their house. So it's,
I'll say for somebody who walks on the icy sidewalks in town, those lights are crucial.
Sure.
Because otherwise you can't see where the ice is.
yeah, so I mean, we try to accommodate, we do have the controls, so we try to accommodate as best as possible, between dimming and, kind of out. Hours that we can dim them and, when people are out, trying to have them brightest, evenings and mornings, so it's. I'll get a call from about the same light and people saying, it's too bright, and others saying it's not bright enough, so.
Well, I have a street light right outside my bedroom that doesn't shine in.
Right. Well, I
Yeah,
know,
like in those, situations, we can, like, there's shields that we can put on, and we have done that,
It's on the other side
Yeah,
of the street, it
numerous-
doesn't shine.
the ones that are problematic are on the strip between them. On the sidewalk strip on Beach Street, they keep getting big.
yes,
I swear you just get rid of that. Those two in the middle of the block,
So high level, you're saying we're 10% fiscal year to date, is that what I heard? That's.
that's great.
I mean, I obviously like going down from 60 to 55, but it just seems like. Realistically, we could have more than that now.
Let's get more information.
Yeah, that's good more. It's too big a delta.
Yeah, we talk about this all the time. It's like, where all the excess drops, right?
But you don't know, we don't like status quo.
20 grand here, 15 grand there, 50 grand here. I'm thinking out a couple hundred grand, right?
Well, that was part of our strategy to go with 50% paintings, because you go shoot for 8, you end up with 10. For this reason.
I think the next one is Tux Point and Coral Chapel. Page 172.
Maybe one that Cheryl proposes, even though.
Oh, that's not yours?
See another.
Okay. That's Parks and Rec, sorry.
Three lights. the last thing.
It's under Parks, but so then we gotta get Water Department. Is 177. I'm assuming this is the same issue in salaries.
What was that again?
The water salaries include the increase in the contract for last fiscal. That wasn't included in last year's budget. So that's why the increases.
So the following fiscal year, what would we expect to see? Just.
I think he said 3%,
3%, yeah.
that's the contract. So what drives water salaries overtime? Thought everything was contracted out.
No, we have our own guys, and so it's call outs for the pump stations, so if those guys handle, that's where this would come from, and then also water breaks that we have and I'd say flushing. Another big one. Stuff like that. Usually scheduled stuff, but you know, definitely has to be done off hours.
What's wrong with postage?
So I think honestly, what was driving that was we've been doing a lot of mailings lately for like the task force and different,
yeah.
Different things, but. Stay or not stay. The expenses, looking back, don't make sense. We used a lot of postage for our sending bills, which is where that comes from. So I'm not sure if it might hit the budget after the fact because of the way that meter is set up. Okay, I'm not sure, but I
It still should be 4 in a year.
I know we use the postage. Sure. So, second.
I don't
Yeah,
know.
there's a number of them that are posted printing everybody of the slides.
Yeah, it's like
Sort of a collection.
it's like $1,100 or $1,200 every time we send a bill, which is what times a year, so it's should.
I don't know what you pay for postage. What I pay either.
In the literacy, it's since forever.
This year, right now, at 52%, so I don't know why it's looking back.
You're at 52%
This year.
postage of the 35. Are we talking the total or are we talking just postage?
I'm talking about postage in the current fiscal year. I'm just questioning the number that's shown in this budget in terms of the number
For 23.
those they expended previously, the actuals don't make sense.
To me, like it's at least 1,500 a quarter.
I'm more concerned total. What do you know where we are? You know, fiscal year to date. On the total.
71%. Not underrunning much.
What is our professional services?
So the big one, protection. I do, sometimes we have certain, like a, there's an accident on Summer Street where they took out a hydrant. So we had people come in to fix that and we have big police details and stuff like that, so that helps out.
Accidents like that happen, Chuck. Is the actual driver or is the insurance company playing? part?
Typically, we get it after the fact, but we have to pay for it upfront.
It comes up, I think, the source.
In his transfers to general fund down at the bottom.
That's for various benefits primarily,
But also since
health and retirement.
property and casualty insurance, is that where
Then we get
the last words of that footnote says in property casualty insurance? So my question is.
Right.
Is that where the town's comprehensive property and casualty insurance policy goes?
No, just the portion attributable to.
the water drivers contributing to the cost.
Because it is an enterprise fund.
Just the pro rata,
Their share.
the pro rata, they don't truly have their own separate policy, right?
Correct. Because we want it to be paid for by the enterprise fund.
Mhm.
We put as much in there as we can. We good with this budget?
Yep.
So I have a motion to approve the water department budget in the amount of $586,293.
You do.
Peter makes a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Andy seconds. Take a vote. Dean,
Yes.
Peter,
Yes,
Maureen,
Yes.
Andy,
Yes.
Mike,
Yes.
Tom, and
Yes.
Sarah votes yes. Water treatment plant.
You're a busy guy.
Thanks for noticing.
Yeah.
Where does this contract stand?
A good question. We have another year. I mean, this year is, I think. So, we did a 3-year with 2 or 5 total. We're definitely not in the last, this might be the last year. This. Check that, I'm not sure.
Is this Woodward and Kerman?
Yes.
About 10% a year.
Well, they had a huge market correction. After. That was based on CPI, that's the inflation. It's the CPI, so.
What's the influence of the natural gas line item?
So we have a line called natural gas, but it's actually also the diesel for the generator, and that was astronomical.
And the heating for the building.
And the heating for the building, we actually got that system back online, and so the diesel goes for the heat and the generator back up.
And I think if you look at the action of fiscal year 23, that was almost 15 grand. So I think this tracks back to the 2023 action.
You might have trouble with lab testing.
We're definitely over.
Yeah, definitely.
What's the real estate tax?
They haven't.
Hamilton.
Water treatment plant.
I was hoping we are assessing them, so.
Any discussion on this budget? Do I have a motion to approve the water treatment plant in the amount of $672,665? Maureen moves. Do I have a second?
Second.
Peter seconds. Take a vote. Dean,
Yes.
Peter,
yes.
Maureen,
Yes.
Andy,
Yeah.
Mike,
Yes.
Tom,
Yes.
Sarah votes yes.
Where are we on the bond? Is that bond paid off?
The water plant?
Yeah.
I don't believe so. I think there's still. I think that's in the 610 budget or the water budget, that's part of the 181.
On the construction of the water.
Yeah,
department, For the building.
Okay. Yeah.
Was that built?
It's not 20 years ago.
Nice. Some conversation for that, so I'm going
On the sewer,
What?
are we on the sewer?
for.
Same story as the previous ones with the salary lines.
Any discussion on this? On the sewer department budget?
So I did try and keep you flat on the city, as you see, trying to keep in mind that we will be doing, fairly substantial upgrade before. Right, I'm not gonna be coming at it from this budget, I'm gonna be coming at it from the much bigger project.
But was there something special that happened in 23 for the equipment and materials? At $1,000, there must have been something, maybe a grant money left over or something, and you were able to make that 1,000 versus. It seems to be much more than one, right?
I have to look into that.
Yeah, okay.
When it was.
It might have been one of those things where it was a much bigger expense, and so we took it out of capital, so we have separate capital lines, so it's a little bit of a. We also might have been overrunning something else like, purposely didn't take it out of that.
Any more discussion on this budget?
It doesn't look like we were ever building the water. Anyway,
You know, so we
so you don't, you
didn't
know,
really
it's,
know that that's what we were, that we were using so much water,
Right.
so we. We found the account
Right.
in the software, not in.
yeah, yeah, hoping to find a savings in it.
Do I have a motion to approve the sewer department budget in the amount of $1,063,772? Andy moves, do I have a second? Steven seconds. Take a vote, Dean,
Yes.
Peter,
Yes.
Cory,
Yes.
Andy,
Yes.
Mike,
Yes.
Yes.
and Sarah votes yes. We are under capital. You already indicated that the road resurfacing is up because of the various streets you want to do.
Now, that section of Mill Street you wanted to do, is that a red line on the pavement management plan, is that? Or is it something that's more convenient because you're there?
Well, Mill Street's pretty bad condition, I'm not sure what
Yeah,
the
I'm thinking
rating
it's,
is on the thing, but yeah,
Yeah, I don't
the
know.
whole road needs it, so, you know, we're already doing half of it because of the water and sewer, so. Do the other half.
Now, where are the drainage and sidewalk improvements? Specific projects or?
So, certain amount of that every year is going to our MS4 compliance, so that's on the drainage side, so I don't have that budgeted in operating, that's, you know, we're taking that out of account. So that's kind of starting point. And so and that also covers our, you know, additional contracts for, catch basin cleaning, street sweeping, stuff like that, gets things out of there. So that's kind of a starting point, and then if it ever does start to accumulate, or when it starts to accumulate, we also have other smaller projects that we try and pick off. So a few years ago, we did some of the drainage work on School Street. It was like drain, Burnham, and into School Street. This year on Walker Road, we had some drainage issues that we had to address when we doing water main work. I also eventually would like, or, you know, you can see on my years, you know, forward years, we have Tappan Street, so that would be not only water, but significant drainage improvements there. So if in the event that this kind of snowballs and gets to be a bigger number, then I would be using it to keep the Tappan number lower.
So when you repave Pleasant Street, will you redo those sidewalks?
Yeah, we'll do the full width. Yeah.
So now when you do streets, you're doing sidewalks, because you haven't always done.
I think I have, like on Forest Street, where we did that water main a few
Yeah,
years ago,
okay.
we did the
Yeah, okay.
sidewalk at the same time.
I know you did in school.
School, we definitely did them, where else we got
That's
What's the sample?
Yeah, so Ocean didn't have.
Yeah.
And we purposely weren't allowed to, we didn't have budget to do that, kept that.
Yeah.
In front of the beach.
Central repaves and sidewalks.
Oh, yeah, just that when I think that was more just because it was in such bad condition, that was a smaller section, I think we did.
So we do have a sidewalk report too.
Yeah.
So in the event that we're not, you know, gonna get there for water or sewer drainage improvements, you know, we can do the sidewalk just on its own. I think North Street might actually do that this spring, because you have issues with that. Whenever we make ADA improvements, you know, those like ramps and stuff.
Oh, yeah.
Like if they're one-off ones, actually, where we did the most recent one was on Upper Pine for the field. We had to use
Oh, yeah.
additional money, because CPC couldn't pay for the new sidewalk. Yeah.
And how old is the backhoe?
Yeah, it's in there, yeah. Yep, that was in the email from last November. The updated fleet plan.
You need to talk louder for recording.
2012, so it's 13 years old.
On the DPW facility. I know we deferred some last year. But 250,000, is that like for a full design? Cause it's about 10% of the total cost or?
No, that's 1%.
No, it's 1%, whatever.
Trees.
Missing the zero.
So that's just for preliminary.
Yeah, so that's the full survey, boring, geotechnical program, and then the big item that we'd like to keep in there is the geotechnical borings for geothermal potential. So those are deep well borings that cost a lot of money. But everything we've read and looked into, that's kind of the way to do large facilities nowadays for the cost benefit of the utility going forward.
And the state's gonna require all of us to do that.
So help me on the numbers again. We're talking about,
The 250 from DPW facility.
and that 250 represents.
Some preliminary site work for the survey, which we would need, full survey. We would need geotechnical borings to understand what the, subsurface conditions are. And
And just
then,
high level for me, so that said something about study represents what the cost of the study is X% of the project.
so the number we're carrying, it's not quite the number. So Ian, I think, said 10%, which would be a $2.5 million project. That's not true. It's so right now we're carrying 20 million in the,
22
is it 20 or 22? 20 or 22 million in a facility master plan for a new DPW facility. So this 250 is a little bit less than, a little bit more than 1% of that cost, and that's the preliminary site investigation work that we would have to do to get to the point to do a full design and construction.
So the 250 is a fraction, let's call it, that's. You're saying the total study work will be like 2.2?
No,
No, not study, design.
Design.
Okay. Study and design is 2.2.
Ish. I mean, I don't have a firm number, but just carrying a percentage of construction number, that would be industry standard.
I just, I don't know, I think there's so many crazy huge numbers getting thrown around. When we just talked about PFAS would be what, 25 years? And then this is 22, that's 47, I mean.
I think that one of the challenges is, I think this work needs to be done at that site to see whether the site is even viable to put a DPW garage on. So I think we need to do this preliminary work to understand how we can use that site.
Just to have a conversation.
Right.
Not necessarily setting any sort of a hard budget.
Yeah. And, I've talked to the select board about this as well, and it's in the facility master plan. That's based on a, square footage number based on similar communities and similar facilities. So that's where that 20 million or whatever it is came from. Rockport just broke ground on $17 million facility, so we're in the ballpark. Once we get this, information back and look at the different, varying interests in terms of, planning board and Concom restriction, all that will be, this preliminary stuff. So depending on how those things shake out, the number then becomes 17 million or 23 million or 20 million, or,
Yeah,
But we still have an option to defer it.
I'm not picking this hill to die on the $250,000 because it's the study, but I'm just saying, even if you get the reasonably conceived of 22 million. I can't even, like, that's crazy.
Well, I think that's why we have to do this first and then we'll get to the other later. I mean, maybe we don't ever do it with DPW, we're not committing to that,
Yeah,
we're spending
to me-
this money.
15 million on PFAS is way more important.
I mean, I'm not putting this number in front of that number, I'm saying we need to.
Would
Yeah,
this,
we have a 5 and 10-year and 20-year plan, and this is part of that plan.
would this be enough to get us to like that 10% design, similar to what CDM Smith did for the PFAS? Or not even?
This is just doing the layout.
Yeah, I don't wanna commit to that, I mean, when I get the full, when I have this budget approved, or hopefully at town meeting, then I will get a scope and budget from the consultants or the subcontractors that do the work. These budget numbers are real, we've talked to people, but if there's an extra 20 grand somewhere, or 50 grand somewhere, then, we would take it to the 10% level if we can. I don't think we're getting 10%, but, something.
Well, it would be nice to get a study to a point where we can really compare it with the staying where it is or moving there.
So we've done that.
Yeah,
That's been, we did a siting analysis based on the existing site and the potential school street site. School street, like itself did better. Then we did a facility master plan. That facility master plan shows the site, moving based on other facility needs across town, like DPW's sites. And so, this is following through on that plan at some level. This is FY 25, there will be an FY 26, and FY 27.
I mean, we could find out that this site isn't usable.
Yeah, that's.
So we're gonna do this first, and then that impacts the whole plan for the town. So we kind of need this piece in order to
it's not
see.
whether it's usable or not, it's whether it's gonna be the most efficient place to use. It'll be usable for a cost, but will it be cheaper to put it?
You don't know what's there.
So we
That's
need.
the problem.
I agree.
Take that down one more level, this study could show that what the land is
It's all polluted.
contaminated, and you can't put any kind of building.
Right.
Something, is that like, it's probably an extreme outcome, but that's like a possible outcome.
And what kind of rock is there? Overtake.
If that gets more to the cost, that's more than this, right? Like even.
The geotech analyzes the soil and so they understand, what kind of foundation it can support. It does look for the contaminants. So that you understand if you have to truck stuff off the site, which can be expensive. So there's a lot of data that will come from that will kind of inform what they can do.
But barring an extreme result like the whole Pine Street dump thing, where right, we're very limited what we could do there, right? Because it was so contaminated, right? I think it was like, you couldn't put any kind of building, because that traps vapors, but that's why,
Well, we could have done that if we'd spent more money. We could have completely remediated.
Oh,
We chose not.
You get my point, I'm just trying to look at the bookends, of what kind of outcome we think we possibly.
I think, my experience, it's a logical first step to take. Doing said project, and it doesn't define the project, it gives us information about that site, which is one of the few sites that we have available in town.
Will also give you an idea of how big a building you can build on.
I guess depending on how many borings they do, and where they are.
Yeah, I mean, there's already, based on the zoning and everything else, there's, setbacks and, the building envelope is, we've looked at that from a, desktop analysis. This will inform, what that envelope looks like based on condition.
That's most tricky.
Do you need a bigger facility than have that? Or is it gonna be a little bit bigger or future?
Yes.
Let's worry about that when we get to it.
Yeah.
It's 9:20.
I mean,
I don't want to solve all of the problems in the world tonight.
a lot of the, first run in all those kind of questions is in the site analysis and the facility management. Questions have been asked and answered, so that level.
What are the general building upgrades?
So that's something that we started, last year.
So that would cover like the roof at the library. And then leaking in the chimney one.
Okay.
That's a good example of how that money gets used.
This year it's doing fire department.
You know, the elevator needs a major repair. That's what this is used for.
Speed lights are a good example of the road speed issue.
No.
Well, that we're taking it out of it.
Yeah, it's out of the,
Oh, I'm sorry, I'm
That's
sorry,
zero.
you're right, you
Yeah.
took it out, yep. I see, yep.
Sorry, Bill.
So if you're on maintenance of vehicles, are you guys doing that internally, or do you have somebody come in and do that, or how do you do that?
Well, we do have a mechanic, so we get kind of the first pass and stuff, of changes, brake jobs, you know, tire looking. But significant upgrade, you know, like we had hydraulic things go on the buckets for the front loader and the backhoe stuff, like we have to send that out to the manufacturer.
Do they come, or does that equipment have to go off-site and you lose it?
Typically on site. Then some things that we can do on site, but.
Anything else on the DPW? Yeah. Budget?
Sewers, the bottom.
Do we want to improve this DPW? Capital? Okay, we approved some of public safety, but we held on, okay, we can hold, but we can hold. Yeah, let's go, but, okay, water department.
Yeah, so these are the things we've talked about already, the PFAS, the water pipe, the meter, and then we do need a new pickup for the truck. The old one is 9 years old.
What's that truck do?
It's the former truck, it's just
It goes home?
no, it, all of our trucks stay on site, it's just, that's a different set of wrenches, I guess.
And water meter replacement, we already talked about.
Could the water pipe replacement budget be lower because we didn't spend it all this year? And wouldn't we use what we didn't spend this year? Next year, or?
So we are taking that into account in this budget.
So Pleasant Street and,
Yeah, I mean, I can get a firmer number based on where we ended up on the roof. Basically, and as you know, we have other,
that probably doesn't account for the change order for Walker Road though. In there.
no, I have,
Oh, you do?
I'd say the other thing is, you know, there's always another piece of pipe to do, so. You know, if the way we did the work, the base bid will be Pleasant Street from school to Pine. We might also do an add-on that goes from school to, you know, Arbella. And then we also have a section of Old Essex Road off of Pleasant that needs to be done. So, you know, assuming that 2 million is tolerable, we'll likely tear those jobs to spend an entire 2 million.
Did the three breaks on Beach Street change the priority of that at all? Or-
No, that wasn't me, that was
That's
service
line.
stuff. Just random stupid things.
Sewer plant upgrades the board discussed. Any more questions of Chuck on capital items?
Staff.
Well, sure. So, it's always mentioned, I was
Yeah, so I guess one of the things that Greg and I have discussed in May as well is, these are large scale projects, both the PFAS and the wastewater upgrades. The public bylaws require, bidding laws require us to have an OPM for those things, which Vinny is actually qualified to do,
What's an OPM?
owner project manager.
Okay.
So, because they're above 1.5 million in construction, we're triggering that. So what we need, it was in my budget in the salaries lines, but we moved it, is a clerk of the works that would basically work under me as overseeing those projects on the town's behalf to basically check that box for the owner project manager. So it remains to be seen if we contract the clerk of the works or if we, it's a town employee that we pay for out of the capital, but that's the approach that I think we're looking at for this for these projects.
Where's it coming
Water.
from? Where's it coming from?
So the money that we're showing for each of these PFAS upgrades and the plant upgrades.
So you got just over 8 million for those projects. But within that 8 million, you would pay your OPM.
Yeah, but
But if it's gonna be a town employee, it needs to be on the salary line.
yeah, I was gonna say, I view those two things very differently. If you're contracting it out and you just wanna jam it in, that seems fine. But if it's gonna be adding a town employee with healthcare, pension, that's a different animal.
You can't come out of capital or nothing. So, to get a solution.
I mean, without looking at the map, between the two, I'd have a strong lean towards the contract, just because. Yeah, I mean, just, we had all these healthcare pensions, it's totally different animal.
It's the thing, if it's internal that you're adding. It's the thing that if it's internal, we're adding a person. We're taking from somebody that's just already in the staff.
No, we would need to add
We
the
need to-
person.
Because we don't have that in-house. Yes,
But it would be for someone within a temporary.
it's a temporary position.
Full time. All right, so how does it work if the town, so if you bring on like a contract.
So we have contract ops through Wood and Current for the water fund. So that, I mean, the math is the math, but it's not cheaper to pay Wood and Current to do it for us.
Right, okay, but not, just do it.
Fully loaded. But if you bring on an employee who's fully loaded, you could do that for a year or two, and then
My guess it
let
would
that person
keep
go.
on after a year or two.
It was hard to let.
There would be more projects and we would need the person.
Yeah. See if we can do something.
Unless it's, unless it's a sort of, planned attrition through retirement of the staff.
I mean, in my time, we've done it that way as well. So I'm not terribly concerned about that. I think we just need to identify the right person. And I think there is certainly, we're lean, so this is just one way of having somebody to fill that role.
Yeah, so under, state procurement for any project or, vertical construction under chapter 149, so it's like any building, it's not our water main projects, we're required to have an OPM. So that's, for DPW, PFAS, the wastewater, if Masons becomes a real project, anything along those lines, you're required to have an OPM. If we were to go outside and if I couldn't cover that, you're looking at, 3 to 5% of your, construction cost for an OPM to, provide that service. And that's, that's mandated by the state that you have to have that person, that company or that person within, employee that can cover that to do those projects.
I think it would be helpful to see sort of a 2 scenario analysis of whether it's employee with the town or whether it's third party.
We do a little side by side comparison.
Yeah, I mean, particularly to Nate's issue, you know, if there's certain mandates and whatever, and doing it externally is gonna be a big number, and doing it internally temporarily for a few years is different, you know.
We'll pull those numbers together.
When we talk about temporary employment, I mean, are we talking about? It's a full-time position with benefits, but it's known at the beginning that this is like a 1-year contract or a 2-year contract or whatever. So at the end of that term. It's like,
You don't have those legacy
we
problems.
shake hands, thank you, job well done, wish you well.
Just ask a mechanical question. So obviously healthcare, they would look at on something equivalent to Cobra or whatever they wanted to do.
Right.
How about pension? What happens with that? Is that little portion of working for Manchester for 2 years over their career get lumped along with them forever?
Depends whether it's the end of their career or not.
Oh, that's the question I'm asking.
It depends if they go on to another government position or not.
Right.
So if they don't,
It's all
then they can just take the contribution they had put in to the system and take it out. We don't know really, because they're not vested. It takes,
Right.
have to have 10 years minimum before you get vested.
But not with town, with the state, I mean, with the municipalities.
With, in the state. it could be-
Right, so you could have somebody who's worked for somebody else for 8 years, come to us for 2 years, and we're on the hook for the whole pension. Right?
We want to avoid that situation.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, it gets, we don't need to get into all the details, but I didn't put this in front of you guys or the select board or anything myself in front of Greg without knowing exactly who and what the person would be and what kind of profile they would fit. And so I'll leave it at that, and we'll do the side-by-side analysis.
That's helpful. Good to know.
And so I think it would be very beneficial for the town and our ability to execute these projects at a high level at a good cost, knowing that we're putting tens of millions of dollars on the table for certain things. And so it's just, this is how we operate, so you got here and continue to do so.
Let us put together
Okay,
Yeah.
a full presentation.
No, it's certainly proven beneficial in the past. You know, I think we started a lot of this with the ramp down here and other things as we go along. And said that, you know, oversight is a good thing on these projects, so. Definitely.
okay. Are we finished with DPW? Let them go home.
You want to state capital costs or not?
No. We decided to wait on that.
Thank you for bearing with us and all our questions.
No, I mean, it's healthy discussion always, and
You learn.
we'll get there one way or another.
Thank you. This is draft assumptions for the launch that Peter sent around.
So I hope you got it online. I have hard copy. I didn't have a chance to look at it.
I'm the director, what do we think is the timing for covering this stuff?
Well,
I can't.
5 minutes?
It's not that.
yeah, I view this as a 5-minute conversation.
Okay, cool.
But the point of it is, to be sure we're on the same place, because this all drives cost. And the key ones here are no cost to the town, tax-wise, or out of the water fund, or the water line. It is a launch service, not a touring service. So the second vote would be a statewide, it would not be an active service. 2 people on duty, seasonal part-time, in all hours of operation. Costs of dockage, that side of costs are not included. Cost of this, in other words, it's the staffing, the launch itself that are being the cost things that we're putting in the business plan around. But the hardest question is what the staff does, the harbor master. There's a question mark in this draft, I don't know if you picked it up, but it has to do with the harbor master. What portion of his or any staff time does this take to manage? And how does that get if it does, factored into the cost of the service. Because there will be management time. There'll be financial time, you know, for budgeting, for keeping track of the financial operations. I don't know that, the answer to that question is not readily apparent to me, but I assume, at least in the first cut, we will not include, not. include. But those are real costs too. It will take harbor master time, it'll take time for services in town hall to deal with this. Is that where you want that to be? Again, those are, those are some substantial costs. The rest is pretty self-explanatory, I think, but you might look it over, particularly I look to those who've got some launch service, or if there's something here that looks way out of whack, please help us, because I haven't run launches. But that's why it's here and why I brought it to you.
Why did we say no harbor tours?
But we felt as though we're dealing with here is a launch service. What the service has been requested is a launch service. But this actually says that the harbor tours, if offered, will be self-sufficient. But that's the assumption we've made.
I just think harbor tours kind of fill in the dead time.
Well,
To make it
but
more.
we didn't have
It's general
staffing for it. We're not making the assumption for it, but it's important. If that's a desire, it'll obviously slightly vary the staffing and other things.
We do assume that one launch is sufficient to provide timely service.
That's the assumption I'm making, but there is a backup launch, which I understand. I've never seen these launches, but I guess I've seen them in the harbor too.
Yeah.
But it would be, if there was a malfunction in the primary launch, the secondary one could be brought to service.
But what if there was,
Well,
10 people wanting service at the same time, would you?
You're just gonna have to deal, I don't know really what you're driving towards, whether you want to have both launches in
That's
service.
what I'm asking.
Okay.
Yeah.
What would you like, folks?
Maybe it's like you got
That's
two,
why this piece of paper is sitting here.
you got two staff members, so 2 staff members and 2 launches, wouldn't you have both of them?
Won't preclude it, but we, the service time and the maintenance assumptions that are gonna be for the second vote are gonna be changing if you see a much more active role.
Why would you have 2 people, if you're only operating one launch?
I think there's safety.
Well, because I guess there are lunches and they're.
Do we know whether there's peak periods that
I
exist?
can't hear you.
Are there peak periods during the summer?
I assume
Was the
there are.
prior
Right?
law
Such courtesy of being a member of the Manchester Yacht Club.
I mean, they're saying that it's gonna be busier on weekends.
It's a busy weekend, holidays, but middle of the day might be busier than
So I'm just asking, is that planned for?
I think you have to assume 2 launches.
Okay.
I think reality is that.
So if you
So
have,
we probably have to have 3 people on staff.
if you have 2 launches, well, you'd say at the second to last line, there will be 2 staff on during service hours.
Right.
So if you got 2 people and you're paying for 2 people and you got 2 launches, it sort of suggests you got 2, and then if somebody walks down and says, I want to do a harbor tour, somebody's sitting there, I take their money and give them a harbor tour, but it helps cover the cost, but I don't know,
Well, that's why we're having this conversation, folks.
Didn't Bayan feel
You
that
have a broader view of this than I brought to the table.
He said, I think, I remember talking about, I think it was Lawson, and make some nice.
I think he was for.
Yeah. So you'd like the second one to be certainly in active use, so you want to run a 2 launch service.
As needed.
That's neat.
Okay, but I'm not questioning it, I just. I was telling you the 3 staff.
You can play staff there, I don't think you need it during the week.
And if it's raining, you probably won't.
But the reality is you have 2 big boats, you have 2 boats floating there through the whole season, because it's hard to pull them in and out. And people come and people go to run them. And maybe during the weeks, you have 1 person, then on weekends, you have 1.5 for 2 people running.
They're picking up 2 more.
No, they're not in the club.
Yeah, they're on the float. I would think that the Harvard tour might offer some offset during the off-peak time, during the middle of the day. Ideally, I mean, I just don't see how the, so
We're not gonna get into the numbers.
a total
Not
cost.
asking that.
These are parameters, and then he's gonna come back with numbers.
Yeah,
So
but
we
I
get,
thought it useful to have this
Right,
conversation.
but we're not gonna discuss the numbers now.
right. But when we do, what we'll do is we'll put that cost, we'll put it out there for launch service. And the number of people that want this, we'll divide that cost between them.
I don't know, we'll wait till we get the proposal.
Yeah.
Wait for the proposal.
Is that how it's?
Let's wait, we've gone over our 5 minutes. Did anybody have anything else they were dying to say on this matter regarding the parameters?
The main takeaway is that you want really plan for a 2-month operation on a continuing basis, have the staff that goes with it.
And then to your original point, we want this thing to cover itself.
So we want this what?
We want it to financially cover.
Yeah, I think I've heard that loud.
Yeah.
Yeah, including the capital cost.
And even to your point, the buy-on cost.
Well, yeah, the staff time in town hall won't be in the initial business plan. I'm not sure how to model that,
Okay,
but there's a cost there. Okay, got it,
got it? Are you good?
got it, I'm good. I'm meeting with you tomorrow, right?
Next item on the agenda is debrief on the joint meeting with Essex. Would you rather defer that to the next meeting, Andy?
Yeah, that's what I believe, but yeah, no, I think it's.
I'm flexible.
Any thoughts on the joint meeting with Essex? Was it?
I prefer to punt anything we can punt, given the time.
Okay. Okay,
Just one thought though, was Greg's memo came out this afternoon or something about spending in the school budget in its preliminary stages. And you had the second sentence in your memo, and I don't have it in front of me, but was that their numbers, their budget numbers are low. And I wasn't sure whether that comment was to accommodate Essex, and we should say something about what.
The assumption I use in the preliminary budget
right.
is
all right.
lower than what it looks like it's the actual. is going to be.
Okay,
It's our,
so that's a comment about our budget, not their budget.
okay.
Okay.
Yes.
But it was 95 grand.
We're not gonna talk about school budget tonight.
I was gonna pump the whole thing.
Sorry, I'm looking for clarification.
Next item on the agenda is minutes. I'm holding the January 10th. Because I have substantive comments to make to that. And I didn't get them done. But I'm good, I made minor changes, which I think I sent people. So we're good on the November 8th and the joint meeting on December 18th. Do I have a motion to approve those 2 minutes?
You do, you have a motion to approve those two minutes.
Do second? Peter seconds. Okay, all in favor? Pete?
Abstain.
Except,
Oh, abstain.
and Mike abstains. Tom's in favor, Andy's in favor, Roy's in favor, Sarah's in favor, and Peter's in favor. Majority. Those are good. Okay. The other thing is the schedule. The preliminary schedule I issued, had the school district be discussed on February 7th. But they're not even voting on their budget to February 6th. So February 7th seems too early to me. That I'm thinking we should move them down to the 27th.
We have as general government.
Right, and that we move general government up to the 7th,
Next week.
yeah. To start on that,
21st or the 27th?
That's the.
Thursday, the 27th.
I had library parks and recs.
No, we moved library, parks and rec to the 14th. And I tried to move library back to the seventh, they're not ready. I did meet with them.
So, yeah.
The school on the 14th.
It's 27.
Yeah. Is that okay? We still have CPC on the 28th.
So general government 7, library and rec 14, schools 22, and CPC 28.
Right, plus on the 28th is the funding for the capital strategy.
I'm
And
so sorry, I missed, what are we gonna do on the 14th?
library, parks and rec. And that will include the library's plan about its addition.
Okay.
Okay? And then, so next week we'll also talk about the second quarterly report. And I'll see if there's anything else that we need to discuss based on the stuff that Greg sent us today, if there's anything else. Anything else people want to bring up?
What you do here?
Motion to adjourn from Danny.
Second.
Dino said, seconded, all in favor? Aye. Thank you all. Finish before 10 a.m.
That's unacceptable. Thank you.
Peter, I didn't mean to cut you off, but,
I thought we were like doing your whole presentation.
Yeah, I didn't hear feedback on whether the assumption.
Yeah.
And I got it, and it's already, what I got is that you wanted more expansion to it. We'll do it.
Spoke.
Pardon?
I see the people spoke.
Well, some people spoke. There you go.